6:40. This is the town meeting for the HPDD Review Board, June 22nd, 2022, 6:30. My name's Chris Senecal, I'm the chairman. Mr. Dick Williams and my good man here, Jim Purington, is with me. And Mr. Doug Briggs, I hope, is walking in very quickly. Tamika Murphy is taking the notes over there. And Michelle Van Riet is on a long vacation, but she will be watching the meetings on Zoom, like privately, so there's a thing to allow us to do that. They can still vote on things. Yeah, he's shuffling in now, taking his time. All right. So first up on the agenda this evening are the meeting minutes from May 25th. Does anybody have any comments?
I make a motion to accept May 25th minutes.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Jim.
And I found...
Hey, Doug. Traffic's tough. That's brutal. Welcome. How you doing?
Good.
Good. Doug, we just had a second motion to accept the minutes from
almost there.
May 25th. So just open that up to any discussion. Is there any discussion?
Just one thing.
Sure.
As I walk in.
Just in time.
Yeah, just in time. I guess now that we're getting kind of close to the end, I kind of want to make sure that we're tying things together. And it has to be on one of the questions that was brought up, and it had to be on the last page. It said West asked the board for amenable to the rumble strip rather than the speed bump due to the possible issues of plowing and such and such. And it says, all we're fine with that. And
yeah.
My question is, did we vote that? Should we vote that? As opposed to just saying everybody was okay with it.
Well, I think, I don't think we have to vote on every little item that we're going to approve or disapprove on these site plans.
Okay.
I think what we're going to be looking to do, and what not to get off topic here on the meeting minutes, but I've broken down things into four main categories, okay, tonight, and I'm making a list of final items, okay? And, for instance, I've got, the building structure, okay?
Yeah.
I've got the roadway. So the structure in the units, everything like setbacks, lighting, quantity units. I've got general site, I've got drainage, stormwater management, utility things like that, and then an order of conditions. So 5 total things that we're gonna start breaking things down into, Doug. And we're gonna start, putting this down, giving these guys clear, concise direction whether we're gonna approve it or we're gonna shoot it down. Because honestly, I don't think the board has been very definitively clear on a lot of things to this applicant and giving them direction. And then upon that clear and concise direction, documented here, they're gonna update their drawings, and that rumble strip will be shown in the next drawing. And once that's on the drawing and we approve this drawing ultimately, that'll close an issue like that.
Okay.
All right? So not just that issue, but a few different things. Mm-hmm. That's the way I'm hoping to kind of frame things up and tie it all together at the end. Okay. Or, Doug, it'll be in an order of conditions associated next to, tied in with the plans.
You can include stuff like that in your decision.
Yeah.
And as Chris stated, you can also, because of the site plan, have stuff shown on the site.
Show the site plan. Yeah. All right. Any other discussion? No. All set? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote to accept the meeting minutes from March 25th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, hearing no nays, the motion carries unanimously. All right, next up on the agenda is the public hearing of the Harbor Classic Homes definitive site plan, proposed 55 and over community up at the Rutland Heights Way, continued for May 25th. So, just want to tell you, that's kind of what I was trying to do here. Kind of get these things down to categories, and let's, I feel we're at the mountain here. We've heard a lot of the information. We've gotten a lot of things back from Quinn. Wes, I know from Quinn's comments, you might have some response to those, his second comments from June 2nd. I don't know if you have any
Chris, if it's okay,
reply.
What I'd like to suggest.
Yep.
We have the traffic engineer here.
That was one issue we want to jump with, yep.
So, I'm not sure if you want to have him give his presentation first and cover it, and then we'll have Wes.
Absolutely, I got no problem for the sake of time for this gentleman. We can do him first, but those are probably the two main talking points tonight that we probably have information kind of gathering and sharing that we got to do. And I think after that, I kind of want to get to a point where we're kind of done sharing information, and let's start giving you some direction and getting things cleaned up or in orders and conditions, and start tailing down to the 18th hole here. All right,
Okay.
sound like a plan, guys? All right, so first up, if anybody on the board have any other points or comments right now?
No.
All right,
So I
so,
think, based on the last meeting, there was a specific question about why maybe a particular intersection wasn't
included.
included, or if it was or if it wasn't. And then just from a general perspective, the overall impact, or the minimal impact that the site is really gonna have on the traffic. Maybe better explained this way here, you can eliminate, you can feel more comfortable not having an independent peer review, because in our opinion, it's just not warranted.
Correct, and I think the board generally felt that way, and I believe it was the two items, the two issues that were not referenced in the original report was that intersection of 56 and 122, 56 going north
Yeah.
and 122A, and then the roadway connector. That obviously will be, it's not part of your project, but it's gonna be feeding your project. So I think those are the two areas, and I believe,
Yep.
Dave George too, one thing I should say, Dave George put out a memo to us today stating that you guys were going to be prepared to talk about that. He just sent an email to us, I don't think he copied you folks, but it's just that you would have this gentleman here tonight, so.
So this is Sam Gregorio.
Sam, welcome.
TEC consultant.
All right, great.
Microphone or here?
Right there's fine with me, we can hear you.
Alright, I'll think about the TV or whatever you're on.
Oh, yeah, is there anybody on there?
I see me on there, so I think.
So, yeah.
So, as you said, my name is Sam Gregorio. I'm the senior traffic engineer at TEC, office out of Worcester. We prepared a traffic study that was submitted to the board. And I don't know who else in the town, but I'm sure other people as well, that reviews the site. The traffic study that we have, depending on units maybe go in or out of the site, ours is based on 142 units. So how that, if it's over conservative, it's over conservative, but it would be.
Yeah, but based on that, right?
So, we had made an original phone call to the planning department in town. This is probably now going back a while because the study was started last year in May, about May. So, and we had discussed what would end up in the study area at that time. So I'll kind of jump right into the intersection part because I think that's one of the important questions. So where we start in terms of deciding what's going to happen in terms of a study area, not only consulting with the town, but we look at the type of site that it is being residential. And one of the things that we would look at right off the bat is how we would distribute the traffic that comes out of the site. For a residential development, even something that is a 55 over type community, because the peak hours and the worst hours of the days are still associated with what would be commuter, even for a 55 over community, where you would obviously expect there to be less workers because of the age of the community. But for those particular hours, you'd be looking at the people who would be going to work and coming back from work generally. So what we usually do is distribution based on a journey to work model that's dated directly from the Census Bureau that looks at people who live in Rutland, where they work. It's updated yearly. The current data that we were using was still back to, I believe, using 2013's model, and it doesn't change a lot year to year. But that's just that's the last of full data at the time that we had. It's been more recently updated now and publicly available, updated because of the 2020 census that wasn't available at the time we started this. But it wouldn't necessarily change much of anything in that term. Using that model, it shows us where people would distribute out if they were from this site. So how many people in Rutland live in Worcester, we take that proportion and put it on the site for the amount of trips that we have. And from there we can decide, okay, that's how many people are going to drive down 122A towards Worcester, for instance. So using that model, and based on the amount of traffic that we developed to the site, which is based off standard industry rates from the IT trip generation manual, which is a manual of just thousands and thousands of traffic counts for different uses. This type of development in that distribution would only be sending about 4 cars towards that intersection in the morning and 5 cars to or from. 5 cars towards that intersection in the morning. Everybody else is either going south or towards Worcester, the other direction on 122A, which is that level of traffic at that one intersection didn't necessarily warrant us to look at it because we'd be talking about 0.1 or 0.2% of the total traffic at that location increase, which is not, it's the difference between a Wednesday and a Thursday without us. So that's why that wasn't looked at particularly.
So anybody going towards Holden down 122A southbound, you feel that they would go out to Maple Street, up 56, and then turn right that way?
Yeah,
Rather
so-
than going out through the schools and cutting up through that intersection, is that what you're saying?
Or towards, like Worcester. So we would expect them to come out of the sun on a Maple, go north. We've just purposely done it so we don't want our residents to drive through the school, to come out to 122A there. I think we would be actively telling our residents not to do that. And how that, it's an enforcement issue really is at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the path of least resistance,
Yeah.
water, people, lightning, it all happens the same way.
So whether or not they're, even if some people were to say cut through the school driveway, let's say the worst case scenario, that's not going to necessarily add so many trips now to that intersection that was not included. That would still even more be included. When we do add intersections, generally do a study, we generally look at something that add 5% or more to an intersection, which doesn't even happen at Main and Maple, but we know that Main and Maple is a concern, so that's why it was included.
So,
A major concern.
so specifically, you were referring to the intersection over here,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, over
right
there,
behind
which heads north towards
Yeah.
Hubbardston, that's it.
That was
It's
the one
just
that was asked about why it
inconsequential.
wasn't
Okay,
Yeah.
good
56 north
explanation.
and 122.
Fair explanation.
And at Main and Maple, we did include it, still wouldn't mean 5%, but we obviously understand that that's the
Okay.
major concern intersection in town, so that's why we included it.
Okay.
Most of our traffic to that.
So 5% is the threshold, Sam, pretty much where you start.
That's generally the standard we look at, that's the state standard, for
State
instance, when we're doing a
standard,
study. So this being a Master T roadway, if we were gonna do improvement, or you were gonna do improvement for some other project needing Master T's approval, that would be the threshold that they usually have in that. They have a guide, 5% or 100 trips. This doesn't come close to 100 trips, so that's already out. So it'd be basically the 5% threshold that impact at any intersection or location. Roadway would be included if you were including it as a roadway. Our study shows that even at Main and Maple, we are less than 2% of that at Main and Maple.
But again, you showed that because
We showed it because we
there's
know
not a whole lot of intersections. You got to put something on the report, right?
we also know it's a concern, so we wanted to make sure
I think that was
That's
the
the main
main, that was the
intersection.
main intersection that I think we were told that we wanted to be concerned with.
And both of them right now, we understand, as a community that they, at certain times of the day, it's pretty dicey.
Yeah, and knowing that the worst approach being there in the Maple North, obviously, because that's where the stop sign is. The good part about at least what our side is, even though we're not adding a lot of traffic in total, most of the traffic that we do add is all right turns. So even if they're gonna get to it might add cars to the queue, but when they get to that stop line, they're a fast out compared to the left, which is obviously the worst.
Sam, one question, that the 5% threshold you mentioned, is that in the report that you put, that that's really the standard where you start to look and see
Yeah, it's actually
what we
on
have
the
a
page.
situation here?
Every other, well, it's kind of mixed between page 1 and page 2. It's the last paragraph from page 1 that mixes into page 2. So it talks about that being part of the Mass DOT TIA, Traffic Impact Assessment Guidelines. Which hasn't been updated to 2014, but it's still the current standard. 14, is that right on that one? Yeah, 2014. That's the current standard that we still use for whether it's mostly for state projects, but we bring it down, we talk about it in towns. But that doesn't mean that's not the only thing we're going to look at. Again, we still look at it because we know it's an issue. And we would always err on the side of adding something if we know it could be something that would come up. The other intersections, the one going, the breakout that goes north, there just wasn't enough to even, yeah. So knowing that most of our traffic is going towards Worcester, especially during those particular hours that are the worst hours of the day. AM peak hour, that's 7:30, 8:30 period. PM peak hour, that's 4:30, 5:30 period.
There's a good point Jim brought up, because both of those intersections are kind of a little bit of a trouble spot for us, and, so it's nice that we can, we've got something now to close the loop with this, just that we did our diligence here.
Yeah, in total for the site, the worst hour of the day for the site would be the PM peak hour. That's when we develop the most traffic from our site. Being that the type of community is 55 and over, there's just obviously less trips than what you would normally see from a normal residential development. And that's just because there's less workers for people who are 55 and over, although some do. When they do work, a lot of them work different type of hours in the normal 9 to 5. And although don't quote me on this, but I believe kids are allowed to live there, but only if obviously a parent has to be 55 over. But obviously the amount of children would be a lot less than a normal neighborhood. Therefore, there's less soccer trips.
There's not 50 soccer moms flying out there.
Yeah. So in general, there's just less traffic. So for the amount of units that we have, the worst hour of the day, and this is usually over a couple hours, like there'll be 1 hour the same as a couple hours after, because some people arrive home from work at different times, basically, would be 63 trips. I think it's about 60-40 split for entering and exiting and entering. And that's for added to the network. So that's not any one street, that's just the entire network. So any one street, it's even less than that. And that 63 trips is about, you know, one new trip to the road every minute, or one trip to the network every minute. So I've been talking for about 5 minutes now. Total of 5 cars total have been added to the entire network. It's not a noticeable amount, especially for a network total. Well, that, I try to frame it that way just so it's a visual aspect. You have to kind of see it.
Yeah.
You're seeing 20 cars on the road, now there'd be 21, for instance, kind of thing. So, looking at the, we do an analysis that looks at each of the intersections that we included. We included the intersection with Prescott, for instance. And the intersection of, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Protry? Is that the name?
Augusta?
No, the one to the east of Maple. Protry?
Prospect.
Rowdy?
That's the one.
Oh, yeah, going down there on the left, yeah.
So that one we looked at as well, only because we know most traffic's going that way. That's the first intersection after we want to make sure that unsignalized intersections aren't going to have too much of an impact compared to the additional traffic. And in general, the only intersection that actually shows level of service that's elevated in that sense is still obviously Maple and Main. That's an existing condition. We add a little bit to it, but nothing that has any significant value based on just the amount of cars. We're just not adding enough cars to generate fact. And most of our cars coming out of Maple again, right turns, not left. So it's not adding so much to the total delay. And they can turn right out when you only have to, especially looking at this intersection, you're looking at the more flat area when you're looking left, trying to turn right out, as opposed to if you were turning left, you'd have to look down that hill a little bit more, which is harder to do. But we don't add many to those left turns at all. So I think actually the worst we do is 3 in a total hour turning left out of there. And that's just because there's not much to the west to go to overall.
Not a huge, not a huge demand going that way. Like you said, it's still the Worcester.
Worcester.
Dunkin' Donuts, not Waiver.
That's true. That's true, isn't it? Yeah.
They'll have to learn, once they get in town, the little back roads.
Oh, people will. People always do.
Oh, you
And
bet.
again, these will be, eventually they'll be residents of
Yeah.
too, so they understand, they'll understand the concerns when it comes to traffic, they'll know. I always try to say, when I come to meetings is, you know, these are gonna be your neighbors. They're gonna be the ones at this meeting, the next meeting you have for some other project, they're gonna be the ones that you see at the restaurants, so it's their community too at some point, so, I always try to believe that when you move to a community or something like that, you're gonna try to respect the community as much as you can. It's people who live out of the community right now.
I got a thought in my brain, I gotta get it out. Isn't it in the homeowners agreement that they have to do a certain amount of town, yeah, volunteerism? That's it.
Oh, I didn't mean that.
Oh, finally, we're gonna get all our committees filled. Right there.
But in general,
No,
that's
it's
the
good.
big aspects of the traffic study. I mean, obviously you have questions, stuff like that when they come up. But overall, it's being that works out, only being 60 or so trips. It's just not an overall general impact. Again, that 1 per minute new on the road network, not even one road. But try to show in the study what that, obviously that particular intersection, I know was the concern. The traffic study does actually show everybody from us going towards Maple first. Again, we don't show people going to the school driveway. If that were the case, it would actually only make our impact at Maple and Main actually less, because we have less people in Maple. Main is the free movement, so we don't want that to happen. We're going to try to correct people to make sure they don't do that.
So Sam, with the 1.7 going up to Maple and Main, was that basically all the traffic going that way and none going out through the school area then?
We're not showing anybody going to the school area.
Okay.
In our study, we believe we do note in the study, if it were to happen, it would show, if you're distributing the traffic more,
Yeah. Obviously.
it gets theoretically better, because you're less people at any one point. It would add cars obviously to the school driveway coming onto Main Street, but that would extend back a little further than what it would, but in general on the overall network, it would be less. But again, we don't want to send people that way. We're going to actually try to make sure it doesn't happen.
How are you going to do that?
I mean, we can tell the residents what to do. I mean, at some point it does become an enforcement issue without, even if signs are there, even if things, markings are there to tell people what to do, depending on the people who actually do it. And this is any roadway, anywhere. So.
There's no restrictions on that connector trail right now in the morning when
There
the
is
buses
not.
are coming and going?
Because the parents are bringing their kids in the morning.
Back door there,
And they're
yeah.
coming in that way, and I can see when I mentioned Dunkin' Donuts, that's the way for them to go, is through
Yeah,
there, because,
Cut out bang right there.
take a right and they're right there. So, but they'll learn that, and, won't take them long to do that. But, just to let you know, I did bring up, it didn't get on the agenda, but I brought up to the selectmen that we need to buckle down with Mass Highway on Maple Ave, and also complete streets. Our DPW director wanted to put a complete street from right out here, right through to the Heights. And as far as I'm concerned, it's still on the list, I believe, in the conference room. So it needs to be brought up and see how we can move a little bit more on
I
that.
sent another email to Gary today, when I, just in general on the connector road, while we're talking about it, I sent an email out a couple weeks ago about that.
Yep.
Sent him another email today, because he was gonna check into a grant that he had
Yes.
of $600,000 or $900,000 to
I-
upgrade that section of roadway between, from the Naquag out to the Heights property,
Yeah.
where that finished road is.
It was 600.
So, you aware of that too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Is it still able to be?
I think
tapped
it's
into?
gone, but that was probably 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah. Gary thought it was at least that long, at least 6 to 8 years ago, because he's been
Yeah.
gone for, 4 or 5 years, right? And it was a few years at least before that, so he felt it was. But he was gonna look into it and then try to get it,
Yeah.
into the selectmen's, regardless which way it went.
I mean,
Yeah.
separately from this project, just as a traffic engineer, I can bring up that with the stuff coming through the infrastructure bill and the other things going on, now's a pretty good time to go back and ask for different, there's plenty of grants and stuff that are open that they're trying to get rid of money.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as a town, to investigate whether it is a complete streets or safe to school or
Correct.
Yeah.
Mass Works, knowing that, we have residential going in nearby, I'm assuming you would fall under small and rural town anyway, so you don't necessarily even need the other development to go with that.
I don't think we fall in that small or small rural town. I've tried that grant for sports things in the past, and we're just above the threshold.
Yeah, but even if you're about to, like, in the next year, as long as you're close enough to something, say, like this development, saying that there's residential nearby that we're trying to help out with, doesn't necessarily even have to be associated with it, but even just mentioning it as a town, like, it is going in, something to consider. I mean, unfortunately, the last one of those rounds just ended. June 3rd was the application date, so you have to wait till next year, but,
All right, and did you have anything to report on that connector road as well? Anything regarding that section of roadway?
from inside the school.
Yeah, other than just to try to limit the traffic, or?
I mean, for us, it's about talking to our residents to make sure they don't do it. I mean, it's not our property. It's whatever we do I mean, there's things that we could come up with, the things that the town to consider putting in. Whether or not that's the responsibility of the housing development would be a separate conversation.
So I am trying to reach out to the principals of the school.
Okay.
I think school ended Monday or Tuesday, so probably wasn't a good time for somebody to be giving them a call about something like
They
this.
didn't really want to talk to you, did they? Nothing
I
personal, I'm
can't
sure.
understand why, exactly. But as soon as I do connect with them, I'll let Dave know and we can see what they have to say.
Comment. From my perspective, it's not really this project's issue. If the town decides, or has decided they want to put a main boulevard down what's now school driveways, so be it. I personally don't think that's a great idea, but apparently the highway people in town do. I come from a school perspective, having been on chairman of the school building committee for Central Tree. But I don't think it's related to this project.
I think the DPW, in talking with Gary and also Joe, they want to, that road doesn't meet current roadway standards by really any dimensions, and the deterioration of the road, he's had to fix it recently, a good long section of it, and it's being, the rest of it's beat to hell.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know how you control, I mean, with all due respect.
Oh, no, I don't disagree.
I mean, people take the path of least resistance, and if the town doesn't make that a one-way and make it just flat out illegal, I don't see how you're gonna control your residents or how we control any other residents in town. And, you know, if it's easy for those mothers and parents to drop their children off from that side of town, they're gonna go up that road and they're gonna use that way, and we can't make it a one-way, because the school buses kind of come down Maple a lot, they come in from the Main Street side, so they kind of do that loop, but, people just use it both ways, and I just don't see that ever happening in town, unfortunately, to keep that flow of traffic down. So that's why I've sent out some emails, and Mike's involved with that. We're just trying to pick up the torch, because I agree with Jim. I don't think it's really, Harbor Classics Homes' problem to maintain or upgrade that section of road. I think it's the town's issue. It's been a town issue, and the town needs to step up and take responsibility, and either make it a one-way or upgrade the roadway. And that's really not us, for this board to decide, but I'm just taking responsibility that I don't want to see a kid get hurt over there. I just want to do all I can do to get this roadway upgraded, or, something mitigated where it becomes a one-way. So I don't think that's really going to be any concern of yours.
Yeah.
I mean, just know that it could be a one-way road. I know we did say that construction traffic would only use the Maple Ave entrance, please, all right? And just keep those guys out of there to keep the peace with the
With the schools, yeah.
just please, for the love of God, just keep them out of there, how people get, so.
Except for summertime.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, during, like, right now, school's out last week, so, it wouldn't make a difference right now.
A solution to the roadway might be a, no through traffic during these hours.
Certain hours,
type
one
of
way.
ordinance, which you see in other communities, but again, that's not this project's
And, I thought about that,
focus
Chip,
or
and
problem.
no, it's not their problem, but even just from our town's perspective, when the school buses are going through there, that's the heavy traffic time and that narrow roadway there. And that's when the parents are just flooding the school from both directions. So, I'd love to say it's one way from 6 to 9, but that's gonna just,
In traffic sense, it's hard to do.
you might as well just make a one-way period.
Yeah, because if you change out flow patterns in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
one person's not gonna remember. And then you have a guy going down the wrong way at one point, becoming a safety issue, so. From just from a traffic perspective, you'd almost want it to be all or nothing, all day or no, none at all.
So, is the board in general consensus that this is really not an
absolutely.
issue?
Yeah.
No.
And that we're just gonna, that connector road is our problem, you guys don't have to worry about it. Just keep the construction, again, in an order condition item, just keep the construction traffic off that section, use the Maple Ave entrance, and then hopefully by the time units are being filled up, we've got a plan in place. If it's not, corrected, there'll be a plan in place. And that'll be our charge, that'll be our responsibility to deal with. I think with the issue of 56 and 122, I think he makes a good point. It's so low, it wasn't really on the radar, and if more cars do go that way, which I think, to his report, that's gonna lower the 1.7 at Main and Maple, so it'll balance out to a degree. I don't think that.
And generally, in a world where, let's say, this roadway becomes public way or whatever like that, people will find the fast leasers in, and they will balance out the delay. If there's X delay on Maple, they will. And that's not to say that, not that I want it to happen, but you make it available for almost full traffic. It's not to say that other people on Maple, not us, are not now going to cut through and do the same thing. So,
I do believe they're doing that.
oh, they probably are. I would imagine.
And as the town grows from that side of town, more people will continue to do that again. That's not your
You
issue.
can't really, you can't.
And I think his data is pretty spot on. I mean, if we have 1.7 coming up Maple and Main, obviously that's the majority of the traffic's always, even with the other access, the majority of traffic's always going to be going that way. So I would have to agree that it's less than 1% coming the other way, going up to Main, to that center, to that other intersection of 56 North. So, because again, very few people are going to be heading up 56 North by far and large. Majority of them are heading towards Worcester. So, I mean, your data makes sense. It makes all common sense, what you're saying. So, do we consider this a dead issue, so to speak? Or a closed issue?
Closed.
Okay.
I'm still here for questions if they come up.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, we've got some comments back from Quinn,
Correct.
and I suppose you have some comments regarding those comments?
Not a lot of comments, actually. So a lot of the items, and I can go through the letter real quick if you want to.
Sure. Let's do that.
Okay, so, item number 1 actually has something to do, it's more, I think, with the decision that's drafted, and I know David had asked me for this information today.
Mr. Chairman, is there a way that can be posted, can be put up on the screen, this letter? Oh, they would have.
Okay,
handicap
fine,
access
no problem.
back there.
No problem.
I don't have an extra copy.
No, it's okay. I was thinking more for the general public, but it's okay.
So, item one has to do with the application review standards.
Excuse me, it is on the website. It was posted, so if anybody did want to look it up on their phone, you could. Go ahead, Wes, I'm sorry.
And so David had emailed me actually today to just make sure that I get him a complete list of all the different sections that apply to this and how we meet all those sections. So when a decision is drafted, that all those items will be on that decision. And so that is something that we will, as a team, will be putting together for David, so we can have that when the decision is drafted. So all those items are on there. Number two, we're all set with.
Number one, section 6, 7, 8, what are those?
There's different criteria that need to be met for the permit to be issued. I don't think I have.
Those are really site plan.
What, section 6, 7, and 8?
I can help
what?
you on this. So,
I was reaching this today, I'm like, what document
Yeah,
is
there's
this
a couple
referred
different,
to?
there's a
Right,
couple
so-
different things you have to find. That's,
Go ahead, Dave. You might know, Dave.
I was going to see if I could answer the question.
Please do.
Thank you. So the application itself, the site plan application for the HPDD board has a section 6, 7, and 8 in the application form itself. So
The
these are
application form,
the application form. So these
not
are,
in our bylaws.
the application form has this
and I think one of the sections overlaps with the section.
slightly.
Yeah, with the.
So we're
one
looking
section
to
of the
make
bylaw.
sure
Okay.
that there's findings
Gotcha.
submitted in response to the application in its entirety. So it's section 6, 7, and 8 of the application form for the site plan review. So you have the copy of the application, we have it in the file, I think I may have it here if we need to get into this further.
And I think, just to clarify, the reason why he's probably asking that, because when we submitted the application, there were certain questions that we either intentionally left blank or reserved so that we could make the presentation, get some feedback, and address whatever issues had to be addressed. So I understand why he's questioning it, and we'll definitely include those items.
And I do have the application here if you'd like to
I've got it right
see
here.
specifically what
So
sections
it's
were.
in the application then, okay?
That's correct.
I just wanted to confirm that's where it was, and that those are the items that we're talking about.
Yeah, and actually one of the items that we wanted to make sure we had a conversation with the board was traffic tonight. before
That
we-
was one of the issues on that 6, 7,
Right,
8,
I think-
yeah.
yeah, I think.
Yeah.
And just to expand on this a little bit more,
Go ahead.
this information is going to become part of the decision because these are findings of fact. So we want to write as complete of a decision as possible, like we did for the concept plan. So it's very important that we get this, and I trust that we will, so.
Okay, all right.
Number two was taken care of on the plans.
Yep, on the revised May 20th plans.
Number three, we were gonna request a waiver for this section. I think we talked about this before, the difference on right-of-ways and subdivision roads and what we're proposing here. We are meeting the majority of the standards in regards to subdivision rules and regulations, but we weren't proposing streets, so we weren't providing some of the information that typically is with streets. And so we're gonna ask for the waiver.
Yeah, I'm kind of struggling with this, to be honest with you. So, and Jim, you touched upon this, and I don't think I gave it enough respect. I want to apologize. When we talked about the 12 inches versus 18 inches of gravel,
Yep.
processed gravel under the roadways, or driveways, as you refer to them, we understand they're all driveways. And for the sake of talking, we'll say, the main common public driveways and the private driveways extending off the main
Yep.
into the garage space, right?
Right.
So I think we got to look at it two different ways here. I mean, technically, it's the same. That little stub going up to the garage is classified as the same thing as the main thoroughfare that all those units are off of. I'm not sure that, I want to get a feeling from this board how you want to handle those roads, if you will, those thoroughways that all the units are spurred off of. Are we going to consider, because this is a kind of a common theme, Wes, in a few different issues. Like, are we going to consider that, the 12 versus 18 inches? Just having an actual detail of the road. They don't want to have to provide a detail of that road.
We have a detailed road on here. I'm not asking for a waiver, it was just the profiles, they were asking for profiles, because typically we don't provide profiles of driveways.
Well, profiles cross-section.
Different. two different things.
What the profile's the long,
Yeah.
yeah.
The details right on the plan.
Do you have cross sections on the plans? I didn't see those when I looked at those tonight.
Yeah, there should be in the back of the,
I saw the storm drains, I saw,
page 12, proposed street cross-section is how I have it labeled because it's the main thoroughfare. And so you can see how we have the two layers of the 6-inch gravel, the binder course.
push
the
up,
course.
top left, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep, all right.
And we also show the
You got the entrances and the.
driveway entrances.
Yeah, the
we
driveways.
have the berm details now, which we changed the berm details.
Yeah.
And the
So,
sidewalks and
okay.
so forth, so.
All
We
right.
do provide all the details with regards to the construction of the roads.
Okay.
And again, if the board feels that, you know, you want us to provide the profiles, we can provide you the profiles, it's just, like I said, it's, the way we differentiated it was, we looked at it as more of a condo development instead of a public roadway. It's just, it's kind of different how we prepare the plans for the two of them.
Yeah, so,
Because ultimately, if this were a subdivision or a way that the town would either accept as a public way, then obviously you're gonna want the details.
You're gonna get a profile afterwards, if it was a public
In
way.
this instance, it's gonna be the homeowners association that's taking care of the roadway, so it's
Correct.
not anything that's gonna come to the town ultimately.
no, in the last meeting, we even talked about that it's gotta be an order of condition that this won't never be accepted by the town.
Right.
That this will always stay in perpetuity with the condo association. Mike, you had a question?
I just have one kind of thought swirling in my head. What have we done with the other senior housing projects in town? And I think we need to be
Consistent.
fair and consistent with whoever has built those. I mean,
I'll refer to Dick on that, you're on the planning board, and really, I was gonna look to you tonight, because, you know, the issue that Jim brought up, of the 12 versus 18 inches of sub-gravel, you know, the detail, how does this board wanna consider this? You know, I mean, I understand where the app, you know, the attorney and the engineer have made their case clear, you know, it's a roadway,
he knows the answer.
it's a
Yeah, I was
private.
gonna say, it was made to specs.
It was made to specs, however, a road profile was not required. They got the construction details, but the profile, well, I don't believe was part of it, because it was not gonna be accepted by the town.
Correct.
Therefore, that wasn't necessary information. But the construction details were shown as we're talking about
So
here.
you're talking about Susie's new one up there?
Talking about
Yeah.
Susie's new one, correct.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, do you happen to know the depth of gravel under the roads and so on? Do you know?
It was, I believe, the standard subdivision amount,
Yes, that's what it showed.
yeah.
Okay, but again, that's one that's being taken over by the town.
No,
No.
No.
it's not.
no, absolutely
Right,
not.
yeah.
That's a senior housing complex, that's a private drive,
Okay.
which is what we have here, is a private drive, feeding the interior ways around the site after you come off the public road. So, you know, in Rutland Heights Way is the public road, everything else is a private drive. The analogy being Susie Drive is the private drive coming off of Main Street, the public road.
And that's 12 inches.
I believe it's the subdivision standard.
Standard.
He believes it's 18 to 24 is the subdivision standard.
Okay.
Okay, so 18 to 24 is our subdivision standard. They're requesting to be 12 inches. And like I said in the last meeting, that, you know, if you're building a little strip mall, that parking lot, you know, again, that's, you know, you can build it to 12 inches. That's usually the standard.
I just want to just maybe pull back. I don't know that to be the case without checking on that. If that's a specific question that this board has, I can go into the file and research, but I don't know that to be the case.
Sure.
It may have been less because it's not a public road. I don't know. But it was at least the 12. It may have been the full, but we have to check on
I'm
that.
pretty sure it was a full. Henceforth, before this meeting started, when I said hands-on and being up there for the meeting right now, do you know any wetland or wet areas up there that you're putting your units in? Very, very little. So therefore, I'm thinking that 12 inches is going to be more than sufficient enough for up there. There is only one area that I think there's a small spring, and that's the only one there. But the bulk of that, your area.
It was staying away from the wetlands. All the roads are well out of the.
High and dry there, you're not near the wetlands at all.
No, it's not the wetlands. This is when you're mowing and you sink a little bit, you know what, you know,
It's soft.
it's it's soft.
And I don't think there's any ledge on that hill either, really.
I don't think there is.
Close to the surface.
No, not close.
You know, I mean, it's been developed, I mean, it was, you know, it was cut back, way back when, so whatever ledge is there, it's down deep if there is.
Yeah,
And those are the two things that are gonna, you know, hurt your road over time.
yeah.
You know, part of me, you know, to Mike's point, I wanted to be consistent. I was gonna ask you what we've done on other ones like that. I think that's a great question. You know, obviously, it's a private-owned, you know, roadway, but you still, it's gonna get the same use that a subdivision would get, you know. Snow plows will go through there, trash trucks are coming through there, cars are driving through there, and it's a condensed area. I mean, when you take a look at the amount of traffic, granted, you know, the over 55 isn't as much as the Soccermon developments, but, you know, still, there's a lot of units in one condensed area, so, you know, I don't know what that equates out to, but it's pretty close to a standard subdivision, I would think, that's spread out more with just fewer homes. So, I mean, the use is gonna be the same, it's gonna see the same use. So I'm kinda leaning towards keeping our standards of a subdivision to it, because I think it's the right thing for these people purchasing these homes, that they don't have to, you know, pay for this prematurely. You know, they're gonna pay for it at some point in time. But I just wanted the board's opinion. You know, I've been thinking about what Jim brought up last week, and I don't think I gave enough time last week, but I just kinda wanted to bring it back up, so. What is the board, you know, Dick, Jim, Doug, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think you gotta find out what we're requiring everybody else to do. I mean, when you're talking Susie, there's only like, what, 8 to 10 buildings?
Yeah,
And if you're gonna make him go 18 to 24, they're gonna have 88 buildings?
17 buildings, 34.
17 buildings.
Oh, where, Susie?
Yeah.
You're kidding me.
and the duplexes, right, so that's 34
Oh, but
units.
still, 17 isn't 88.
No, right.
You know, and I'm just saying that we should be consistent in what we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, the outer ring is certainly gonna see a lot more traffic here than those inner cut roads, you know? And I'm not trying to make this too difficult or beat it to a dead horse, but, I don't see the difference on the traffic, really, the use of those ways. I mean, under the driveways, you know, going from that street to the garage, I'm fine with 12 inches there or whatever, you know, I don't think that's an issue. But I just want everybody else's opinion, which way you wanna go with this. If you wanna have Dave research this, we can do that too. See what they did for Susie, see what the planning board allowed there. It's a different board, guys, that would do a normal subdivision, because this is the Rutland Heights, the planning board, we're not the planning board in town, just so you understand what's going on here. So there's another board that approved those the over 55 subdivisions, a different group of people. So we're kinda like the planning board just for that property.
And I believe Elbag built,
The other
oh,
ones,
55 down on 122.
yeah.
And
And
yeah,
56.
And 56,
So way
so,
back when, and all that, all that estates, right?
so maybe it would be worthwhile just to have,
Just to see what the town's done and,
yeah, see what,
not
have
that,
Dave take a look.
yeah.
Before I do that, what's the applicant's appetite of going to the full standard for the subdivision?
Like, I tell you, 24 is excessive. So, and that's, I know we asked for 12, if we could, obviously, depending on what the other developments are, we would not like to do 24, that seems extremely excessive. If we can even meet somewhere in between, that'd be at least, you know,
I'd be certainly amenable at 18 inches.
Yeah.
The standard is 18 to 24.
well, if it's 24 for a subdivision, that's a lot of gravel.
That's a lot of gravel.
That's a lot of gravel.
Yeah, that's, even in my opinion, it's a little, it's
Yeah.
on the strong side.
Yep.
No doubt.
That's I think the biggest around locally, at least for Central Mass, so. But it's something that, like I said,
I'm fine with
In the
doing 18
meantime-
inches. If you guys want to agree on 18 inches and we want to put this to bed right now,
The board-
I'm fine with that.
the board needs to take an official waiver at the end of the process on all the waivers. So I think in the meantime, I think David could probably look it up and find out
Right.
what the other projects
Good
are.
point.
and see that.
Yep.
And then at that point, we can, at least you have that information when the waivers are
Okay.
voted on.
So
we can have some
so we're looking at-
discussion then.
Developments that have ended up with private roads,
Yeah.
and what has the town approved for those private roads? Ones that are, you know, somewhat analogous to this project.
So I have first-hand knowledge of Susie, having been involved with that directly. Are there other ones you want me to look at? And if so, can you tell me what those are specifically so I can research
There's
it?
4 of them in town, excuse me,
You know,
Please.
sorry.
That's fine. Keep it
And?
moving forward. Yeah.
There's 4 of them in town.
So
There's the one on Maple Street going down on the left-hand side there.
Correct, yeah.
That was done by Northern Estates,
Okay,
way probably back in early 2000s, like
Yeah.
03, 04 timeframe, I believe.
yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
even a little earlier. 02 to 4, 02, 04. Where's the other one on 122?
122
Village
was,
Way on Maple Ave as well.
There's another one on Maple Ave,
Village
There's
Way.
2 of them on Maple Ave.
Village Way.
What about Bonnie's?
That was existing roads, that was a zoning board thing,
Okay.
those trail ones, that was a different thing. I wouldn't use that.
That's not one of them.
We just used existing roadways there, they didn't put new roads in.
I think the one on 122 is
That was Northern Estates,
Autumn Woods, I think.
Autumn Woods.
Yep.
yeah.
and that was Northern Estates, that was done probably 07, when he built that whole Irish Lane area there. And he went up 122 there. Again, that was Northern Estates, Elbag and Mark Elbag and Jim Susi at the time, right, were one builder.
So Dick, I'm probably gonna ask you to come in one day, we can help you
Yeah,
go through the file.
okay.
There's 2 on 122. There's the newer ones up by Four Corners and
Oh,
the older ones.
those-
for
well, those are-
those condos.
those are condos, I
Okay.
think, yeah, the ones, Dave Lucia just did? Yeah,
Yeah.
those are condos. Yeah. Okay, I mean, I think that goes back a good 15, 20 years, so I think it gives us
Yeah.
pretty good,
Yeah.
it'll give us some data to go back and stay consistent with over the last 20 years.
And the 4th one is the one just down the road.
Yeah.
Citizens.
But we're
Yeah,
specifically looking at 55 and older?
correct, I think that's the only thing we should stick with.
Yeah.
Because you've got the 2 on Maple Ave.
There's 2 on Maple Ave, 122A, and Susie's other one right here.
122.
I'm sorry, 122, yes.
122. There's 2 out there.
Well, I don't know if you call the townhouses over 55, they're not.
What townhouses?
The ones that George Lucia built.
That Dave Lucia just built up? Yeah, those are the ones Jim just talked about. Those are not over 55, so
Yeah.
Okay.
let's just keep those. Okay. All right, is that good, Dave? Thank you, sir. I appreciate your help with that. Okay.
Item number 5, we talked about this before, I think in one of the initial meetings after we had the Quinn review the first time. Typically, we don't record design plans, they're not done to industry standards, so I know at the time we talked about if this board wanted a plan recorded, it would be a decision plan that would be recorded, but typically it's just a decision on a project like this that's to be recorded. Typically, we don't put signatures on the design plans because they don't get recorded, unless the board feels strongly enough to have a signed copy of the plans, they'll want to be in the office, but they're not going to get recorded, they're not done to industry registry standard. So they don't get recorded at the registry. Typically, only land plans get recorded at the registry, so and that's where subdivision rules and regulations are a little different to tie to this, because there's no new land plans part of that. Only land plans get typically signed by the planning board. So.
I know on the zoning board, we just had like a big stamp, okay? And then we used to just stamp it,
Yeah, yeah.
and all the members would sign the plan.
Okay.
That was submitted to us. And
Yeah.
the purpose for that was that when we handed this over to the building inspector, he had a set of plans that he knew was accepted and signed off on by us, it had our signatures on it, and then, the builder and the building inspector knew just where everybody stood. This is a new project for us. We've never stamped any plans. You're the first set of plans to come through, so I'm sorry just to ask for a little patience, but we just got to figure the process out here a little bit and really what we want to do. I agree with you, Wes, that it's not like we're trying to record something in the registry of deeds or anything. I think we're just trying to say that, hey, this is what we've agreed to. These are the plans, and you and your guys are out in the field doing things. You know what's right, and if it doesn't have it on there, you don't do it, I guess. That's kind of the approach we took with the ZBA. What do you guys think, and how do you want to handle it on this?
I agree with that. The stamp.
It's just a simple stamp, and we just sign our name right on the thing. It doesn't have to be a fancy title block or anything like that. You don't have to do anything, we just stamp the thing. Now, we'd have to probably purchase a stamp, Tamika, for like, 5 signatures or something like that with dates, and then at the end, the final set of drawings, we just stamp them and sign them.
Okay.
Does that seem like a fair process here? Not too complicated, but yet something that the building inspector,
Yeah.
and the DPW knows that, hey, this was the plan that was approved, this is where the detention basin is supposed to be, this is where the curb cuts are, this is the type of curb cuts we're using, all the details on those plans.
Okay.
It's just, to me, I'm in construction, there's nothing better when everything's approved, go baby go, you can go and make time.
Yep.
And it's good for you guys in the field to hustle and get it done, and it's good for the town, because there's no question, there's no he said, she said, or I want it this way now, not the way they did it. I mean, I don't want you to run into that, honestly, sometimes, you know, inspectors can be inspectors. A little difficult. They have
I
their
like
own
it.
ways.
I like it.
All right? It's a simple process. I'll suggest that, if we're good with that, maybe that's something good we need to take a vote on to make part of this process. I'm not sure, I have to go back to the bylaws. I'm not sure if there's any official process how we sign off on this, Mike. I'd have to research that and review that,
What's
Dave.
gonna happen is you're gonna sign a decision,
Okay,
and what's gonna happen too is that the final plan is gonna be referenced as a condition of approval. So whether you sign something or not, it's gonna be in the decision as a condition of approval, that the plans
yeah.
as submitted,
It's true, it's in there,
that
yeah.
we're gonna, what's
The
gonna bind
date,
the
the
applicant.
revision, boom, bang, yeah.
By title, all the details, yes. So that's how that gets done.
So is that sufficient then?
That's sufficient.
Right? We don't-
That's how you do it
So
on the
the-
planning board.
When we sign it, they'll have a set of plans, and the set of plans will be as per a certain date, a revision, all that other stuff.
Yes, so,
Because I've been involved in too many where the as-bills come out and they're completely different than what they were passed, and that's
Well,
why
the
I agree with you.
as-bills can be a little different, but, you know, there's certain latitude, right, that the plans will allow, you know, installers to deviate a little bit from, but,
Yeah,
you know,
I've
for
seen the
instance, like,
latitude doesn't-
whether you're using concrete or granite curbing, that's not latitude, you either use one or the other, you know, or asphalt curbing, you know. So if that's what the plan shows, and in Dave's decision references, like, for instance, when Wes revised, his last revised May, you know, it was originally May, March 4th,
Yep.
but the revision date that he's referencing in his plans that Quinn just reviewed was May 20th. So right now, we're working off those May 20th plans.
Right.
And if this document ends up being the final approved, like make no changes document,
Yeah, there'll be one more.
then that'd be referenced in Dave's decision. If it gets referenced in June or July, then that's what it'll be.
Unless the next one comes through and they forget to change the date.
I see that.
Well, you make sure you don't
I've
sign
seen
it
that
on
too.
the date. Well, yeah, no, we're gonna take it.
Sign the plan and sign the
Yeah, just say, put a stamp on it and sign it.
And that's fine, we can give you a full set of paper copies.
But if you want to sign, I'm fine with signing it. Right?
you can
Yeah,
put the block in the plan,
yeah.
Thank you, Wes.
instead of a stamp for that.
Yeah, if you put a block in there for us, a place to sign it, that'd be perfect.
Yep.
Terrific, thank you.
Good.
You good, Jim?
No, yeah, it's good. I mean, every page says revised, has the revision date on it. So
That's what they
it's
should.
clean. Yeah,
I mean,
it's clean.
to Doug's point, trust me, in construction, a lot of guys do not put the revision
Yeah,
dates
I
on
was
it.
just checking.
It's like playing, you know, some guys want to play cat and mouse, come catch me if you can. You
Yeah.
know?
Absolutely.
It can be,
It
a
looks clean.
little hairy, but,
Yeah.
yep. All right, thank you.
So I'm gonna skip all the way to item 17, because it says this office defers to the board, and I know we show the location for lighting.
Let's just go through, can we just go through these one at a time? real quick?
Yeah.
Just a, you know, so everybody, so, item 6, the accessible parking, curb cuts.
Yep, so we changed added more accessible parking up near the.
This was the zero,
community
yes,
center.
the high, the large traffic
So,
area.
so we were looking at, as a whole of site, how many visitor spaces we had. And so instead of putting like one visitor space along the street, which wouldn't meet the grade requirements, we put them all up near the community center. And so we added some more accessible spaces up near the community center. Because that's really, I think we talked about the last meeting, if I'm gonna have a visitor to my house that needs accessible space, they're gonna use my driveway. They're not gonna park down the street where it's a little steeper and try to wheelchair all the way up to a unit. So we felt the best place to put more accessible units is up closer to the community center. And then you can see Quinn was fine with.
Yeah, the community center has handicapped accessible spaces,
So I
but
think
those
we have
other
that.
general parking spaces would not. That's what you're saying.
Correct, and like I said, it doesn't lend itself to be a handicap space.
Yeah, that makes
And then I
sense.
could take a look, but I thought we were up close to 5 spaces now up near the community center. It's either 4 or 5. So we're at 5 handicap spaces at the community center now to meet the requirement, so. And that's why I know that was one of the other comments that he had too.
Okay. Yeah, okay, we're fine with that, yep.
Number 7 had to do with the traffic
Traffic,
impacts,
yeah, it's a good deal.
which we talked about. Number 8 was the amount of.
Oh, hold on a second.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, Wes, so back to 7, and back to Sam's, you know, fine presentation. Is it of the board's consensus now, just to give these folks general direction, that we do not need a third party?
Correct.
Is that something we need to vote, or is that something we're just gonna put in the order of conditions, Dave, or how do we, is that something, how do we document that?
I think we have it in the meeting minutes. I think we can, so we have the outstanding findings that we're looking to get. I suggest that you put that into the findings on the site plan application, and just acknowledge that no peer review is necessary, and we'll build it in as a finding of fact.
Okay. Just a.
again, had to do with accessible spaces next to the community center. And so again, we added 3 additional spaces. Before we had 2, now we have 5. And I think we all feel it kind of, I think it suits all the purposes that we're trying to do on this project.
Okay.
Number 9 had to do with the landscaping along the side and the rear yard setbacks. And I know we looked at this at the initial meeting, about how we landscaped it and how we kind of laid out the project as well as we could to leave a natural buffer along 2 of the property lines. I know to the property line adjacent to the school, we weren't able to leave much growth there, but there's not a lot of growth along that property line anyways, because there's a paved driveway right along the property line. We are gonna show some grass and some minor landscaping along that area, but there's not a lot of room there, especially with the grades the way they are in the back there.
Is that existing asphalt roadway staying west?
That's all coming out.
That's all coming out?
Yeah, because it's right against the property line, that's all coming out, that's gonna be the backyards of all those units.
And that you're just gonna grass?
Yeah, when you come into the site, all these units on the right-hand side will all have grass backyards.
And we agreed that natural buffer between the yeah.
There's a fair amount of
On the other
natural trees on the town
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, the town property has a
Yes.
enormous buffer there.
Yes.
But that would be adequate
Yeah. I agree.
to mitigate the need for that.
Right, and that's what I know at the, I think the first meeting, we were able to see the aerials there to show you where some of that natural growth is gonna be. And then on the other property lines, there's gonna be natural growth left on the applicant's property to create some natural buffer between the abutting properties, which the abutting properties already have a fair amount of it anyways. I know there's, I think, a farm to the, I'm trying to think, to the west of.
Yes.
But there's a fair amount of buffer even on their property before the farm is there. Number 10 had to do with the landscape strip along the front line, and so along the front, along the basin, we cannot show landscaping. I know at the last meeting, I think we talked about a post and
Rail fence or something?
post and rail fence along the front of the basin just for some kind of aesthetics there, because we can't landscape there, and then we do show some landscaping along the right-hand side of the entrance. We do show some landscaping and an entrance side into the property. So we do show landscaping where we can. Obviously, some of the existing landscaping that is along the existing basin, that will all stay. That will be kind of cleaned up a little bit, but as much as that, natural growth will stay there. And so there'll be a good enough buffer, I think, when you're, I know there was a conversation about looking from Maple Ave toward the site. You won't be able to really see the site from Maple Ave, and that's the closest residences is out on Maple Ave. So. Number 11 had to do with landscape islands and large parking areas. The only, when I say large parking area, is the community center, but it's split. I think it's like,
we determined that was gonna be a hazard more than a,
really more of a pain to plow than
yeah,
anything.
that's more of a dangerous spot than doing
Right.
that. I don't, yeah, we're fine with that. Yeah.
Number 12 is trash removal, where they'll end up having a private trash management company take care of trash removal on the property.
Okay, so is it gonna be common dumpsters, or will it be everybody has their own little trash bucket that you put out at the end of the road, at the end of your driveway? How's that gonna be? And then one other question I'd like to just ask, I think you need to show an area for a dumpster at the community center. That is, right now you don't, didn't see anything in your site plan for that.
Don't show, and I don't know, that was one of the things I think we actually talked about before, is if they were gonna have their individual totes, and even the community center would have their individual tote more than a, I'm not even sure if it's dumpster. We're not even sure if they would have enough of a function to, individual tote, to have something like that, where it's not a dumpster.
I don't want a dumpster hanging around.
Okay,
I agree.
the dumpster's a,
It's
it's a dumpster.
Yeah.
Even fenced in, it's still a eyesore, you know,
Yeah.
compared to the totes.
Plus
I
it
think the
takes
totes
up
are a
more
lot easier.
space than.
Yes.
I want to lose
No, no, it's-
another spot.
Because you need access to it with those trucks.
Right, yeah.
You know, that
And you
Yeah,
gotta fence
that
it
affects
in.
that whole parking area, and how you're gonna lay that in there.
Yeah,
It's just down. All right, well, just, let
I
me
think
show
the
you.
totes would,
We have a dumpster at the community center right now, correct? Up there off of Glenwood.
Yes.
We don't put totes out, but that's set back off the roadways.
This way, it's also more expensive for a dumpster versus totes.
Not sure about that. This guy's put the wood to your way. Holy smokes. Don't show up at the time. I'm ready to throw my guy out.
I think,
All right,
I
so.
think it's also gonna be dictated by the trash removal company, because they may say if they're not gonna give them more than one tote for the community center, they may have to do a dumpster, but I think it might be something that, maybe a condition of approval that if a dumpster has to be put in, that it has to be fenced in, or at least screened,
Screened.
yeah. Which I know a
Yeah.
lot of times we'll be doing the white vinyl fences for that, and
All right, and then,
Yes, we can do to screen it.
and then access for that, how would you,
So
just come off that, or like add a separate parking space, basically, like?
It would take up one of the spaces. There's not enough, to maneuver into that area, it would take up a space
Yeah.
within the community center, if it was a dumpster. So on sheet 3.
Yeah, because you've got it, yeah, okay. So just one of those end units, okay.
Yeah, so one
You
of
guys
the
fine with that? I
parking
mean,
spaces.
You've got 2 rows of parking, I mean, you can't add another parking space, that,
No.
you know.
Yeah,
you've got
for
it
them
maxed
to
out.
maneuver, yeah, for them to move.
Yeah, and for those trucks, yeah.
Yes, yes.
It's gonna be tight enough to get one of those end spots right now, so.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll just make that you guys fine with that? They don't do the totes, just be,
Yeah.
okay.
Number 13 is maximum number of units, maximum number of bedrooms in the units is 2, which is the required under the senior housing. 14, we did provide the information in regards to the frontage in the area on the site.
What was that information?
We gave an A&R plan, but we also added a table that showed all the requirements for the offsets. It was on sheet 11. And so there's a,
This is box,
right in the middle.
Down the bottom, down there?
Yep.
right above in the middle.
And it provided all of the requirements for offsets and so forth, and what the proposals are.
So, as far as all the setbacks and whatnot, you meet our 55 and over setbacks, is that correct?
The ones that aren't superseded by the HPDD requirements. That was the first meeting, we had that conversation.
Yeah, we discussed that, yeah.
It's in one of the notes there.
Correct.
Yeah, if the,
And which one was it, just to recall?
It
this
was the offset to the school property.
Okay.
It was the property line to the school property. That was the one property line that was, doesn't meet the 55.
I think it had to be 30 feet or something like that.
So on,
I thought we had the 30 feet, you're right. We were talking about the back setback, right, basically?
it's 30 feet buffer and
Yeah.
30 foot to nearest residential structure. That's in the HPDD bylaw itself.
Yeah.
so we
Just
meet the HPD regulation, but the senior housing, where the development includes 6 units or more and abuts a single-family district. The problem is the school is a single-family residential district. So the increased setback for the side and rear yard goes to 50 feet.
Oh, okay.
And so that was where we talked about it is,
Okay.
and that's why we talked about the
Because
HPD
we meet
regulation.
the
we were gonna-
HPDD regulation, we don't meet the senior
Supersedes.
housing.
And
So
the
the
way it's-
HPDD supersedes the,
The way it's worded in the HPD regulation is it says any regulation that's not in this section then reverts back to
to the other side.
the other sections in zoning, yes.
correct.
And so that was a conversation we had at the first meeting that
So-
David brought up.
That's right.
All right, so we're in agreement with that distance. But how do we capture that? Is that like a variance we have to issue, or?
No,
Nope, the wording's right in your
There's no-
HPD regulation that
Okay. That we
Because
can,
we meet
The
the
30
requirement.
we meet the requirement for the HPD regulation.
because we can supersede that in our,
If there
Not
wasn't a
authority.
requirement,
that it would be.
then we'd have to revert to the senior housing,
Okay,
and then we would need a waiver,
okay, that's what it was, yeah,
Yes.
okay.
okay?
And that's item 15. If there was some, Quinn and us, and we all, I think, had the same question as how,
Yep.
but I think the more we looked at it, the wording, I think, is fairly clear in how that works.
Okay.
16 is deed restrictions are required, and the applicants are aware of that. 17 was back to the street lighting. We did show the location of the street lightings. I know we talked about possible street lighting styles, and I think the applicant had thrown out a couple ideas at the last meeting, but they're fully understanding that it has to be dark sky compliant, and that's something that I think they're,
Is that something you can get a photometric on, Wes?
for the kind of type of lights they're gonna have, it's not even worth they're all gonna be, so we show them every other unit on each side of the street, so it almost works that it's, every 2 units, there's a light.
Okay.
So it's gonna be more like driveway lighting than your standard street light.
Like a post light, like you have in your house, okay?
Correct.
Did we just get a detail on that then?
So, well, I don't know, have you guys made the decision? So, we were gonna ask if you can condition the approval such that any light that is put on there is dark sky compliant. And I don't know if there's an agreeable height that you guys would be, is it 12 feet? What do you mean, I mean, I can't imagine you go 12 feet anyways, right?
No, and exceed 12.
And so you could put on a height requirement too, that, I think 12 feet, and you're probably not even going 10 feet, right?
Right, that's correct.
So even if you want to put a height requirement of 10 feet on there,
Don't go too
the
low.
applicant doesn't have an issue with it, because it's gonna be more the,
Sure.
they're gonna be hidden between the buildings.
Yeah.
They're not looking to have your standard telephone pole with the street light on it.
I'd be fine, to be honest with you. I personally would like to just to see, like, if you could just throw a quick detail on there of a 12-foot pole. Wes, and I'm telling you, do we want to require this to be dark sky compliant? Is that part of our regulations?
But of course, how are people gonna look at the stars?
It's typically,
That's fine.
any kind of site plan review that is done,
Yeah.
it's always conditioned that it's dark sky.
Yeah, that's fine.
And you have, so they can bring it, they can show you one.
We can always provide it to you,
Yeah,
so that you have it for your file.
they can use them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to cut you on a particular light fixture. I don't want to like box you in that tight, like, you know, I'm just trying to say, if it's no higher than 12 feet, like you got a detail, max height 12 feet, dark sky compliant light pole,
Yeah.
every two, you know, spaced out every, I
So
think that's all we need on a
we show
plan,
the
and then it's
spacing
done.
on there, yes, we
Yeah,
show the
because
spacing.
I'd just like to see something on a plan, because
that's fine.
that's gonna help the DPW and the building inspector kind of see it. If it's written in an order of conditions,
You want them to know what they're enforcing.
yeah, and you know, the order of conditions are not always right on their front grill and their radar, so preferably, I'd like to kind of go with on the plan, and, but give you some latitude, just to kind of, you know, 12 feet or under is
It
fine,
makes sense.
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, you can get 8 foot, 10 foot, I don't care, it's just as long as it's, you know, something like that, right? Just kind of an aesthetic thing,
Yeah, I
we're
can
not
change
trying to
it.
light up the roadways or anything with this.
I'll change it on the plan.
That'd be
There are a couple
great.
things that I have to adjust anyways with regard to those
Yeah.
Quinn's letters. 18 has to do with site distance. I believe, Sam, you guys mentioned site, I thought somewhere was on the report.
The sight line we have for the end of the driveway,
Yeah.
like what would be like Rutland type road
Yes,
kind of thing,
yeah.
not individual
Yes.
internal parts, but.
Yeah, but they did look at the site distance, and so, I mean, you guys are familiar with Rutland Heights Way and Maple Ave, so that's really, that's my biggest, you know, the driveway onto Rutland Heights Way is not, there's not a ton of traffic coming down Rutland Heights Way, so, but it's on the outside of a curve, so it works really well. Number 19 has to do with, and I know this came up at the last meeting, was a fire flow test. So I do have a scheduled fire flow test. Friday, July 9th, I think it is. Whatever the Friday is of the 4th of July weekend. So for 4th of July week, you know, we're gonna do it on that Friday. So it's just 8th. So we're gonna go out on the 8th. The DPW is gonna send somebody out there. Myself and one of the other gentlemen from my office will go out there and meet them out there. We'll do a flow test at the end of the closest hydrants to the site. And we will get you that information.
Okay, because
Good.
Dave, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, that's good.
So it's fun, because I've been going back and forth, so I was trying to get Joe to give me a date, and he's been so busy with all the rest of the stuff going on with construction that
Yeah.
one of the other guys from his office finally gave us a call, to give us a date, so.
And Dave, you sent the,
It is July 8th. That
Yeah.
Friday
Friday is that
July.
Friday, yeah, the 4th is, was the Monday.
Yeah.
Dave, you sent out this hydraulic plan here?
Yep.
But it had nothing for that roadway.
This is the
Rutland Heights
information,
is not on here.
this is what I got from DEPW, so I transmitted it to the
Yeah.
board.
So I don't think, you know, whenever they did this, was it Ty and Bond or somebody that went through, or
I believe so.
whoever went through here and did this, you know, you can see right here, you know, here's the pond, right? There's nothing coming up. Here's the school, it just ends in front of the school. So that water loop, you know, nothing's been tested on that road at all, I don't think.
Yeah.
per
Yeah,
this
at least not added to the plan, and that's what I wasn't sure, was because they thought it was
So-
a private way or what the.
plan. Without having any documentation and.
No, and so we'll, like I said, we have that date.
Yeah, thank you, that'd be great.
And we'll, as soon as we get that done, we can send over the results.
Terrific, thank you.
Good.
All right.
Number 20. We talked.
Oh, well, also one other thing, excuse me, Wes,
Yeah, go ahead.
going back to 19, Dave, if you could help me out, have we received anything from the fire chief or police department, anything official I know we've got the Conservation Commission, you guys got through there last night, it looks like you're all set there. But like Board of Health or anybody else, is anybody,
We transmitted a request for comments to all these departments, and the board did not get back any information from any of these departments. I did have a private conversation with the fire chief. He indicates that he has no problem with the hydrant location.
the revised one, right? Because you shrunk those up a little bit, right,
Yes.
per
Yeah.
Quinn's request, yeah?
And I believe you had no issue with fire flow testing. He's going to rely on this test. You're going to be
And
having,
then
and
we'll, yeah, we'll.
you're going to get
see
the
what you
results
there,
from
and then
that,
we'll go from
so
there.
definitely that ought to resolve it, I would think.
The police department, all right, just,
Well, I know we talked about this before, but we did have the department head meeting
Yes.
a couple months ago,
Yeah.
now it was. And most of the comments that came back were very minor in nature. The Board of Health, they don't really have any jurisdiction over this because it's no septic and well, so.
That's exactly right. Thank you for reminding me of that. Most of the comments came back as minor. The police chief didn't see any issue. He's going to defer to the traffic study, which you now have, so that's resolved. The building commissioner is going to rely on the building code for actual construction to be more involved at that time. The fire chief doesn't have an issue with location of structures because you could be relying on the building code as well. So they were minor in nature. And then we sent a request formally out. We didn't get back anything in response.
okay, so that little comment, moment you guys had there, is there any way of capturing that and adding that into our into our decision?
I can make that a finding
Just
of
so we have
fact.
something from these departments, I mean, the only one we've got nothing from anybody other than.
Well, because there was no
Conservation.
great responses that came back.
Yeah.
So therefore you have, that's right. I can reference it in passing as a finding of fact.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's a substantial finding to make, but if you
Just
like
can't leave
it,
it wide open, like we never got anything back, and we never got a memo saying we're all
we'll
set, or
provide the
otherwise,
date
you know?
of the meeting. A finding to the effect that
There's a way to include it.
the RIT met on such and such a date, and here's what was supplied. We can
Just
be
don't
very
leave that
general about
open-ended
it.
with the town and us, and make it look like we didn't
Yeah, we
get
can.
any feedback from them, or we didn't include them, or whatever, so.
Was that added to the minutes of a couple of meetings ago? So, I seem to remember that.
It was discussed.
You did write it down.
I did mention that to you.
And we
guys
did
before.
discuss the RIT and what they did and what they did not do. And that's in
I've
the
seen it in
minutes.
writing somewhere.
It is, yes.
About a month, right? They were, right?
If you want a passing finding, we can easily do that. That's not
About
a big
two
deal.
meetings ago, right? The minutes of 2 meetings
Are you
ago.
gonna be there with the flow test?
Why?
Yeah, what hydrant are they going to?
So we'll end up flowing the closest hydrant to the site
Yeah,
and then do residuals off of the next hydrants down.
okay, but then you've got probably 50 feet between where
So
the
that-
hydrant is and where the houses are gonna be.
So then we can determine the
You're gonna
pressure
have to
loss.
prorate the cost, yeah,
Correct.
okay.
And which we already had looked at anyways, even from the stuff that they had given us. We can at least look at the elevation difference from Maple Ave and into the site and look at.
Calculate the
Correct.
cost.
Correct. And so, so we have it's fairly simple to figure out at least as the height differential
Yep, I know.
on that. Number 10 is we are going to request a waiver from the 10 feet from the driveway openings, because I know we talked about this before. Because the number of units out there, it was almost impossible not to have catch basins within 10 feet of the driveway opening. We did our best at keeping as many of them away from the driveway as we could.
On those catch basin openings, what were we going with, concrete or granite on the backside there for the curbside?
Whatever the regulations are. I don't think we were asking for,
It's the granite for the
I
backside.
thought we used granite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
where, yes, when we have curbing, and then obviously the ones that, if they're in an opening, then it'll just be kind of a sag, it'll be almost like a sag situation in the roadway. Because they'll have the driveway coming down to it, and then the road coming, sloping into it, so there'll be.
Yeah, you have a concrete, your detail shows a concrete flat, right? As the driveway comes down,
Yeah.
there's just a concrete flat piece right there, and then the
Yeah.
grate,
Yeah.
all flush. That's fine, I'm fine with the concrete there. There's no reason to have the granite there, that's crazy, right? You
Yeah,
guys, you know what I'm saying?
we are-
And I can show you the detail on that, he's got that detail here.
Actually,
I did see that, and the details was, you showed by 2 minutes, just the concrete on that.
Is it right there?
Yeah, for instance,
actually, I bought, so we did ask for a waiver on the berms.
For the berms.
Well, it included, because the way that's worded is vertical granite curb is required in all finished grades, over 6% granite headers and at catch basins, and then at roadway intersections. And so we asked that, a waiver for that entire section. So it's up to the board if you want to specify that you're only going to waive part of that requirement or all of that requirement, I guess, when we get to the waiver request part.
So, I don't know what Sushi did over here, but I know granite's pretty much what we use all the time.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys gave me any latitude there.
I don't remember anything for that.
Well, Maple Ave doesn't have a single piece of granite. They took all the granite out and put in cement.
They put cement in?
Yep.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
Is it was it
Well-
poured in place? Was it the poured in place cement, or
Yeah, put in place.
we see that a lot more now? It's cheaper to replace that.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, like at the handicap ramp right here, see, he's got that little section right there,
Yeah,
that's concrete, which, that's flat, I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
no.
So, and the same thing, the same detail there would be if the,
That's what-
you know, where the driveway meets the roadway, right, and you got a drain, you know, you got the catch basin right there, it'd be the same thing, like a concrete layer flat in the ground.
Yeah,
It might make sense to do, granite on the catch basins.
On that, where there's a curbing,
Yeah.
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 And then,
will allow you the
the
bituminous,
the berms and
Yeah,
stuff
and
like
that's
that.
you know,
can
for the
be-
handicap walkways coming
Yeah.
off, you know, in any of the driveways where those catch basins, I would just go concrete on those. Fair
Right,
enough.
and that'll be consistent with the fact that instead of having the 45 type thing, we're gonna have
Exactly.
a gradual,
Exactly.
all right?
I'm fine with that. You guys go
Yeah,
with that?
that's good.
All right, so just reflect, you know.
And so
change.
what we're gonna do is, at the end of all this, we're gonna provide a final waiver list,
Okay,
just so everything's on there, so that when you guys go through your vote, you can have a final list, and we'll just make
We'll
sure that we
specify.
specify that's not gonna be the catch basin.
okay.
It was the slope for greater than 6%, and
Yep.
entrances.
And even like on your silk track, you know, you don't show what you're using for that in your detail, it just says curb opening. So.
Yep.
If you can just specify on that detail that those will be granite, Wes.
Yep.
All right, so it's on this plan, again, going back to, it's on the plan, it's, you know, the guys out in the field know it, they don't have, I mean, you know, a guy in a loader ain't gonna read an order of conditions, you never seen him do that. You know, you gotta read the plan. Yeah.
They tell you.
Trust me, I hear that every day, Peter.
Okay, number 21, the hydrants, we revised the hydrants.
Yup.
Number 22, we provided the grade inlet capacity analysis to them. Number 23.
Okay, back on 22, so it references a 25-year storm, but what about the 100? But
So your regulations call for 25-year storm?
not the 100.
Not the 100. But just so you know, we do, your regulations also only call for 25-year storm for your culvert, for pipes under the ground. Basins, 100-year storm. Almost every town in Massachusetts does the same thing. We typically make our pipes to handle the 100-year storm. How are you gonna get the water to the basin? If your pipe can't handle a 100-year storm, it doesn't, there's no real big difference there. It usually, it's the slope of the pipe that we have to adjust to make it work.
Just to make it.
So, but we did give him the information that he was requesting for the grading capacity limits. And really what ended up happening is just some double catch basins were added to the site, majority of them.
Yep. I saw that. Okay, that's why.
There were a couple in line, most of the time at the intersections we had double grades anyways, so.
Yeah, that's where it really makes a difference to it.
Correct, so anything that bypasses the ones in line, it will be caught at the intersections before it gets out,
Yeah.
so. 23, we had a conversation about the sidewalks and the grass strip between the sidewalks and the curbing.
Yeah.
And so I know we had talked
That way
about
will be approved,
the
yeah.
curbing waiver, the curbing detail has been adjusted to show the
Yes.
A-frame,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or
And then the
H-frame.
sidewalk butting up to it.
Correct, yes, yeah. 24 was street signs. I showed some street signs, a couple of stop signs, and this is something that I'm gonna actually call Quinn on, to get his opinion on it. I made in touch with Sam before he leaves. A couple of the intersections are not at 90-degree angles, and so I have a very big radius, kind of, and putting a stop sign in on the same side sits back like 25 feet from really where the stop needs to be. And so I showed the sign on the other side because the streets are kind of narrow. So at least it was closer to the stop area.
Where is that, Wes?
I can show you on these. These are, it's on the, I think it's on the,
Okay, yeah, I got the,
let's see,
sheet 5, starts there, right?
site layout plans, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 and 6.
And so there are a couple that,
So you're saying because of the sidewalk,
yeah, because So here's really where the stop bar is. If I'm gonna put a stop sign, I'm gonna have to put the stop sign back here. I was showing a stop sign here just to kind of get the attention of the person coming down, but I don't know if it has to be back here because of the way the regular,
Yeah.
it doesn't, because we're not at exactly 90 degrees to these intersections, it doesn't lay out great. The
Yeah.
stop bars are there where they should be, but the stop signs, it's,
I feel your pain, yeah, but I still, guys, so you see what he's talking about here, right, these inside corners there? But I still like the stop sign there because as the
stop bar's here,
paint
but
wears away,
really with the stop
now we're
sign,
not gonna have
Some are across.
anything
So
to
here's the
slow them
stop bar
down.
here.
Yeah.
You know, at least this thing, it's back 20 feet, but you know what? It gets you on the brakes. They're gonna creep out, they gotta do what they want, but at least you gotta slow down to 5 miles an hour here, and they're not going.
Or they go
full bore,
left.
You know?
Yeah, but I mean, this is.
And
all
that sign
fair.
is gonna be there for,
Yeah.
until unless somebody takes it out. But you know, you just paint the stripe in the road and the spot in
not bad.
front, that wears out with the traffic
Signs up
flow.
here.
You know, then it's just, you know, 2, doesn't say stop anymore, you know?
Can't you leave the one across the street as well, like you're talking about?
All the MPGC.
Somebody
I
jab.
want to.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I understand, if you, we'd still like to see the signs,
That's
Wes.
fine, we were just talking about it, so we'll throw them on that side.
Yeah, because if the paint wears out, you know, all you're left
Yep.
with is the T and the O, it's,
Yep.
you know, as the cars go over it, they think it means go faster, not slow down. But at least the stop sign will get them to kind of get down 5 miles an hour. you
Right,
know?
so that, and that's,
It's more of a visual than it is, I guess.
Exactly,
Yep.
and the sign lasts longer than the striping.
Oh, yeah, correct.
Yeah. Okay.
25, we had, I think the last meeting we talked about trees and shrub species, didn't we?
We did, they gave us the, we approved the
The list of trees
the
and
list
shrub.
of trees they had.
Yeah.
Did the plan, is there a landscaping plan?
We do show a landscaping plan. I didn't have the trees and shrubs when I did the.
Okay, can that get updated with those?
Yep,
And
and
whatnot?
so-
Where you gonna finalize that?
Yep.
Okay. And I believe we were gonna put some in between the units, like as a barrier, is that what we're gonna do? Rather, in lieu of a fencing?
Right.
Just have some natural shrubbery back there and trees and give, you know, in the back-to-back units.
Backsides.
Yeah, exactly, yep. Okay, so make sure that's shown in there too, please, Wes. I don't think, it wasn't a solid row, but it was just a little bit of spacing there, yeah. All right.
So in 55 years or so, somebody that's in the tree business will be able to go in there and take down the trees or clean them.
There's plenty of work in the future, buddy.
Gotta look for the guys, you know, make sure, keep them going.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
So 26 had to do with the delineation of the Zone A on the plan.
Okay,
And so the Zone A, as shown on the plan, is consistent with the Mass GIS system. And so before we only showed the 400-foot line on there, we added a 200-foot, because the 200-foot is the actual Zone A, the 400 is the secondary protection zone, which is under the DCR jurisdiction.
and he references that you revised that and added that, so terrific.
Correct.
All right. Super.
27 has to do with soil testing. I know we talked about this before.
Yep.
So I do have some play with regards to the basins, if we do need to raise them, if the soil testing came back worse than we anticipate. And I think I explained to the board and I explained to the Conservation Commission. I'm showing the basins already in a fill condition, where they are. They're about 2 feet above the elevation of the ground. So really, we only need groundwater elevation to be at like 2 feet below surface, the location of the basin. So if it's higher than that, then we have, issues, so.
Did the Conservation Commission have any issue with that?
They're gonna condition this the same, they're gonna say,
Same way.
this is a condition of approval,
Okay.
that the testing is done and that they get the results of the testing. And if anything, any major changes are done, we go back in front of them for the major change.
Not enough for that.
Yeah.
You guys good with that? Right?
Yeah.
And as they said, there was only
I
one
don't want
basin.
I don't want to supersede those guys.
And only one basin's technically in their jurisdiction, the rest of them are outside of the buffer zone, but it's still, the stormwater's still part of their
Those that
jurisdiction.
were, they were still.
Yeah. And I know, there was one item on this, and I thought it was in here. And it might, I think it's later on in his letter, I'll get to that. It's the timing of when he was looking for the testing. And we had a conversation with the Conservation Commission, they didn't have an issue with it. But it was also, I think when the decision is drafted by this board, that I don't we didn't necessarily agree with the timing of it, and I'll explain that when I get to that point of that
Okay.
letter.
And with the 3 different phases, or
Well, and that's what it was. It was because he was looking for it within 6 months of an approval.
the whole project within 6 months?
Not the whole project being completed, but all the testing.
All the testing is done, but you really gotta do it within the phase.
Correct. Correct, and that's where.
Or else you might as well just do it now.
Well, exactly, yeah. 28 is resolved. 29, we provided access. 2030, that the applicant will, and we had stated before, they'll maintain the vegetation around the head wall and the, so it's gonna be on their property now. Once the sale of the property, goes through, they'll end up having, Number 31, in this section, the Conservation Commission now also added this to their conditions, that the applicant will work with the town on if we can provide any road control when it comes into the basin, not into the basin, into the pond. And so we're talking about the culvert exit into the pond, and the problem is it's fairly steep there, and there's a head wall,
Yeah.
and then it gets into the wetlands. And so once some of the clearing is done in there, we can kind of get into that area. We're going to look in to see if there's any signs of erosion. If there's signs of erosion, if we can work with the town, and with the DPW, I guess, would be the people that are responsible for that, to see if there's any kind of road control that can be added there. I know as part of the project, there's going to be a lot of riprap added for their own road control, and so maybe it's something that can be done at the same time, if it's needed. Really, it's kind of a small pipe that's coming from their property into this pond. The bigger pipe is from town property into the town property. There's a 36-inch pipe that runs under Rutland Heights Way. Really, I think if there's any erosion, it's probably been caused by that. So, but it's something that we need to take a look at once some of the growth is kind of cleared out of there.
Down on that bank, yeah.
But I think, like I said, so the Conservation Commission did put that as a condition. I'm not sure if this board wants to put that as a condition also. That they work with the town to take care of that. Number 32, we did update the plan. Number 33, this is a small change I need to make to the plan with regards to the grade of the trail. I need to show a little more fill over the pipe. They were concerned about the cover over the pipe underneath the trail. And so I just needed to update the grading over the pipes on the trail to make sure I have enough cover over the pipe.
Okay, yep.
Which is fairly easy enough. 34 was resolved, 35 was resolved. 36 was resolved. 37 was resolved. 38, we provided the sidewalks to the gazebos and pickleball court.
Back to 37 was, in Quinn's original report, one of the items was the surface of the trail.
Yeah, stone dust.
Is that in there, did that get, I never saw that kind of reviewed again. He just said, what was the, to provide surface, and his second report doesn't actually talk about that. I don't know if that slipped through there perhaps.
I thought I added it as a, I don't have, I think I added as my response to them. He doesn't show my response on here.
Okay.
So I think that's what it was, is I added my response and he was fine with it. And that was actually something that the Conservation Commission asked us to do, and it's in there.
But stone dust, not crusher run?
Stone dust, I think is what, stone dust. And it was actually recommended by the Conservation Commission to be stone dust.
Really?
Yes, that's what they like.
That's just on the rail trail. Let me see, what would, dust would move faster than crusher run.
It's on the rail trail.
Stone dust.
I've seen it both.
So that's what we're proposing, is the stone dust. 38 was like I said, the access to the gazebos and the pickleball court.
Oh, one other thing on that trail. We had talked about early on in one of the meetings that it was going to go tie up to the Central Tree School area through the woods.
Yes.
That you guys would provide. Is that something that's still?
So you can, we're fine with conditional approval.
Just a conditional approval on that?
Yep.
All right.
Yep, and they were fine with that too. They understood that, and actually I think that was going to be in their findings. They did mention it last night.
And there was also that would be public, all those trails on your community as well as going up through the property of the town, the school, would be an access for public.
Yeah.
Right, and that would be part of the findings as well, with an easement or whatever legal thing we gotta do there, Peter.
Correct.
Okay, between you and the town council, they can work that out so that
Yep.
the town has, the townspeople can walk those trails publicly. Okay.
Yep. 39 had to do with the water and sewer. Obviously, we already talked about how the water flow test is going to be completed
Yep.
in a couple weeks. And the DPW, we did submit the plans and actually all the drainage to them too, and they haven't had an issue with the rest of that stuff. 40, we know we talked about the phasing with this board before. We actually talked about it with the Conservation Commission. Part of their approval is going to also mention the phasing.
Can you do a drawing showing that too as well?
Yeah, I think we talked about the 3 phases, correct?
That'll be,
Yep.
that'll be key for all our inspectors and the DPW, just everybody with utility connections and all that, just showing all that, so all that's, it's gonna help you as much as it's gonna help the town.
Right. And any of the phasing, as I pointed out the last time, there's already language in the land development agreement and the purchase and sale agreement that deals with the phasing and the requirements for a certain number of units to be done within a certain period of time, so we'll just have to work.
That's your
within those
guideline,
parameters. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the last is 41, utility installation connections must be coordinated with the town departments. And I think typically, I think it's condition of approval on most of the site plans, so, or subdivisions, so I think that could be an easy, I think that's usually a boilerplate condition,
Yeah,
that they get all the necessary permits from the other boards.
DPW's, water departments, et
Yeah.
cetera. Just to talk about the water loop now, you got the loop going through, so we got the one coming off the new entrance, the one coming down the old roadway by the pond.
Correct.
But on that one going down by the pond, you don't really show a valve or anything, how you tie it into that, Wes? What's the situation? You got the valve up at the top of the hill there in the roadway.
So there's already a valve at the intersection, and then there's gotta be, so that's probably, there's already a valve right at the intersection, so it's gotta be either it's gotta be shut off, is my guess, because it's just a stub right now.
So is there water, there's a water line, there's a stub coming off?
Yes, there's stuff coming off down that driveway.
It shoots down that driveway?
Yes,
Right.
so we're gonna.
So there's gotta be a valve at the end of that, then, is that
Correct.
what you're saying?
Correct.
All right, so you're gonna
Yeah.
tie into that, that's
Yes. Yep.
your plan, wherever that valve is, you'll tie into that.
Yes, wherever the end of that main is, we'll extend that down the driveway.
And then the same thing, the sewer line ties in there as well?
There's a sewer manhole, just
Right.
off that intersection.
Just off that intersection, you see the stub, you show that stub there, you
Yeah,
can
so,
see a manhole right there,
Yes, and
right
then
there,
we'll-
you go into that manhole right
we'll
there,
tap
that's
right into
pretty,
the back of the manhole.
yep, that's fine,
Yep.
yep, okay. All right, so there is a valve there, okay, I just wanted to make sure there was, and that the double loop was something that we wanted to make sure that,
Oh, definitely, yes.
Yes, yep.
Okay. All right, great.
And then the other stuff had to do with waivers, and I don't know, if we're gonna update the list, I know we've talked about most of the waivers already, and I think some of them need to be researched by David about regards to the depth of the gravel. The waiver, the first waiver was the sewer slope, I know Quinn didn't have an issue with that. We already talked about the curb one, the drain pipe material. We were asking to make sure that we could use the HDPE pipe instead of RCP pipe, reinforced concrete. Street trees, which we talked about. The subdivision interval is 50 feet. We do show street trees and shrubs, but we don't show them exactly to that interval because if we did, it would be in the middle of driveways or whatever else. So we do, I think, actually show more than that with the number of shrubs that they were looking at to put out there. So, because putting trees within some of that area didn't work because then the roots would grow either towards the house or into the sidewalk.
Catch basin diameter.
Catch basin diameter, which typically on a single catch basin we do 4 feet, and a double we do the 5 feet.
Yeah.
And so we will ask for that waiver for the single. And I know we've added, like I said, we added a fair amount of 5-footers now. The security bars, we're gonna ask for a waiver for it. It looks like it was in a regulation that's.
You guys grant those, you allow that, like, you don't require those, right?
We don't require them, no.
It looks like it's a regulation that's been around for, must be an old regulation.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. We don't provide head walls into the basins. We just show the flared ends instead of head walls.
You guys allow that, right?
Yep.
Yep. So those two, no issue.
We already talked about the catch basins.
Excuse me, going back to F, the 48-inch, is that, you guys on the planning board all right with that? Going with the 48-inch on the singles and the 60 on the doubles?
I have no problem with that.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
I
mine.
personally,
It's up.
I don't have a problem with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, the 48's big enough to get
Yeah,
access
I mean,
down.
that's
It's-
what
Oh, yeah.
use that pretty much.
Yeah, I was shocked that was a 5 foot was required for a single. That
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty,
it
yeah.
is.
So I think F, G, and H, I think we're in agreement that we're pretty good with that.
I, we've already talked about.
Yep.
J, we've already talked about.
Yeah, J's good.
K, I think you were gonna check with what you guys made the other over 55 developments do with regards to profiles.
Yeah, on the profile, and also, what about, like, electric, transformer boxes, and electric utilities, the cable, TV?
So once, typically what happens is, once we have a final approval from all the boards that we need, and DCR included, then we'll submit our CAD drawings to the utility company, and they'll do the layout for us.
They're gonna do that layout, so, Dave, we're just gonna wanna make the, subject to the utility requirement, they always do their own design engineer drawings, and they have to meet those as trench inspections they have.
And that's,
You
so
gotta meet
typically
all
you do
that
the
stuff.
trenches, right, and they lay the conduit most of the time?
Yeah, you guys put the conduit in, they pull the cable.
We prepare an easement document,
Yeah, the easements have to be
and they
done.
attach their grid design for how
Yeah.
they want everything
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
And so they'll,
Now, and I'm fine, personally, I'm fine with them doing it that way, okay, for all the communication, the electric. I don't think we have to have major details on that, because you have to follow National Grid spec.
Correct.
That's irrelevant at this point, I'm not worried about that. Connection,
Yep.
getting power to that location and all that, what is that right now? How are we getting power up to that spot? Because right now,
Yeah.
there's no power going up that Heights roadway.
there's poles,
There's light poles,
There are
but there's
light
no
poles.
utilities.
But no utility.
That electric right now, Wes, is just like a 277 volt circuit for those light poles, because there's a control cabinet
Yep.
right down at the Maple Ave connection,
okay,
okay?
so that's something
And
that they'll have to.
so that, National Grid, and again, that duct bank's gonna have to, I would assume, I mean, from a board's perspective, there's a high voltage line coming down at towards the Central Tree School.
Right.
And that pretty much ends right
Right at the school.
where the softball field is,
Yeah.
Wes?
Yeah.
Like, there's a transformer, that curls right around, the transformer's right there between the softball field
Okay.
and the back of the school right there.
All right.
So that doesn't come in front of Central Tree or anywhere down towards there.
Right, so that's all private, so we can't.
Yeah, so I think you're just gonna have to come up off of
come
Maple
up
Ave
with-
and bring that up that way. And,
Yeah.
and again, you'll have to meet all their requirements, guys, right? You know
Yeah.
the routine when you do the roadways. It's no secret, you just gotta do what you gotta do, right?
Yeah,
What they tell you.
They tell you exactly.
So I just think that should be in the order of conditions too, that all that, from every little house all the way down Maple Ave, that's all gonna get done to their specs, and I'm fine with that. I don't think they have to submit drawings or anything like that, because anything you draw is just a waste of time.
Right.
And there's no sense in doing
No,
that.
and that's,
Yeah.
There's no sense in making you waste your time and money. That's foolish.
Agreed.
Okay, so fair enough,
Yeah.
you guys will accept that, in the order of conditions there in the draft, and whatever you can do. All right?
so Quinn did provide recommended conditions of approval, which, number one, we don't have an issue with, that was the deed restriction, which is, I think, the senior housing deed restriction, which we've talked about a number of times. Number two had to do with what their recommended condition of approval for the soil testing was, and it's really item C within it, that's the timing of it. You can see testing must be completed within 60 days of approval or prior to the beginning of the installation. And so we don't,
Well, prior to the installation, prior to the beginning of the installation, can we change that verbiage to
well, it says
so
whichever-
many days, 60 days after the start of, like how much time do you need after you start construction to do the testing?
Well, and that's where
It
it says,
depends on it depends on the phase.
Well, and that's why I say per the start of the construction. So every phase is gonna have its own start of construction.
Yeah.
Right, so
so
if we just
it's really when, all they have to do is get some of the trees
out of there,
out of there, and then we get the machine down in there.
then you can start testing.
And so you could, if you want to put it at the beginning of each
Phase.
phase.
Simple change.
Because
I was just like
that's,
within 60 days of the start of each phase?
Right.
yeah, and that's fine, because that's where, because it says, which, 60 days of the approval, whichever occurs first, 60 days from the approval is gonna,
Yeah, I think we take the approval out of it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that personally.
Yeah.
at the beginning of each phase. would
And I
be-
just think within 30 days, you guys want 30 days? Is that better?
How, As long as it's tied to each phase.
Yeah, I mean, 30 days is really all you need,
Yeah.
right?
Because once they start,
Let's do 30, tighten that up a little bit,
Yeah.
get it done quick, so there's no, nobody forgets about it.
Once we start, yes. Okay.
yes, of each phase, yes, yeah.
Yeah, so 30 days with each phase, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's really and it was, because I was reading it, we might as well do, like, might as well do testing that one.
Exactly, and we've already decided we're not gonna request that, require that in a previous meeting, so I don't wanna go back on our word yet, just indicate it that way. All right?
And none of the other, you guys had seen none of the other conditions seemed out of whack. Because it was the mailbox, you guys have to talk to the postal service.
Yeah, it's kinda like National Grid, you gotta do what they tell you, where they tell you, and how they tell you, you just, is what it is. Okay. Just from the stormwater management, and like, during the construction process, is there a stormwater management plan for
Yes.
erosion and sediment control? Was that in the stormwater report?
So there's
I
two
didn't see it
separate,
in there. I
no,
didn't see
it's
it.
not. So, we take the approval from this board and the Conservation Commission, and then we'll include that into our report that we prepare. So it's the stormwater pollution prevention plan, part of the EPA filing with the feds. And so we have to have that done 14 days prior to construction, because that has to be submitted 14 days prior to construction. And so when we have that plan completed, we can submit a copy to this board. The Conservation Commission usually gets a copy, and we can submit a copy to David if you want, on your behalf.
Yeah, it's
You
nice
guys
to
have a
see
copy of
that.
it. And it's, what it is, typically it's a binder. It's a working document, as we call it, and as construction's going along, they'll add and change as they
You
need.
gotta document everything,
Right.
check it all the
It's-
time.
It's really construction-related,
Yeah.
stormwater controls.
Yeah, and just to make sure, you get the right riprap coming by the entrances, and we're not.
Correct, so and I know I showed the detail for the construction entrance on here, and the location for the construction entrance, but there's a lot more involved into that report.
Sure.
And so we prepare that report typically as we get closer to the start of construction. Which I know if once they get this approval and get the stuff back from DCR, they want to get going hopefully this year, so.
Is that something Quinn should review?
It's really boilerplate. The EPA gives us the document to work off of. We have to put specifics with regards to the project.
Okay.
But they didn't ask to review it on this process. Typically, it's.
It's more record keeping than it is anything else.
A lot of it is, but yeah, there's some guidelines, you wanna make sure it's set up right, so that,
And then the EPA gives us all,
That
is
creates a
the-
problem,
Correct, and then they're the ones that direct us toward
Yeah.
that. Like I said, we can give you guys a copy, we're gonna give the Conservation Commission a copy of that.
yeah,
So-
DPW should get one
And
too.
that's what,
Mm.
I think,
Yeah.
I think the way the bylaw is written right now, the DPW is the person that's the director is in charge.
Yeah, really, yeah,
Yes.
Peter.
So he should have a copy.
He is the guy that kinda manages that, and,
right.
if there is a problem, his phone's ringing, so
Mhm.
at least we can do is give him a plan, Always really knows what he's going in, getting into.
And that's why we can,
Because it's a hill there,
it is.
there's some good slopes there, and I just wanna make sure we're not washing out into the pond there during that, that whole detention basin, and just that new road there, it's in pretty nice shape.
Correct, and that's why I think the phasing, the way we talked about the phasing, I think is gonna help that too. At least not the whole site's gonna be open all at once, it's gonna be.
Yeah, and I can't stress, if something gets rolling there, it's in the pond like that.
Correct.
It's gonna be a nightmare fast. It's not like it's gonna wash out to another area where you can just go, all right, let me straighten that, let me straighten your field out. No,
it's
you've
in
got
the
a problem,
drainage of the
that pond, it's in that pond like that, so. I know you guys know what you're doing, but just, there's no room for error really, and in a couple hours, you've really done some damage if it's not, set up right,
Yep.
whatnot, so, okay. All right, you guys good with that? Just
Oh, yeah.
taking a look at it and make sure Joe and the com gets it. All right. Okay.
You better start hoping there are no hurricanes coming.
Tough weather in Rutland? Never happens.
Yeah,
Never
right.
happens.
Oh, man.
All right. So, it was good going through this report tonight personally. I've got a whole bunch of checklist items I'm gonna go through and shrink that down. What's the next steps coming from here now? I think, Dave, we're starting to kind of frame up some things here for the final decision. How do you wanna kind of build this decision and process forward with that now? You got some notes tonight, we can
Yeah.
share those notes and compare those and start using that as the framework?
Yeah, whatever information you have for your list of conditions, I have a list here.
Yep.
I'm gonna draft it pretty much in the same form as the last one.
Okay.
I'm waiting on information for the findings of fact. I'm just gonna put it all together and start work on it.
Okay.
I think one of the things that we should use is like the roadmap. I think in your bylaw, in Article 5, Section 26, it gives the minimum requirements that the HPDD board would have to find to approve the project. And I think if you look at the items, we pretty much have covered each one of them, we've discussed them. So we can at least find those, and then based on those findings, we can
Detail down,
the
cut down, all the other little.
specifics of the decision, so that
Okay.
it points out how everything is covered.
Exactly right. I'll be into the HPDD bylaw.
Yep.
I'll be into the site plan application. I'll be into the materials submitted.
Okay.
I'll be into the conditions. Oh, so yeah, it'll be as comprehensive as done for us.
I like that. That's a good idea. That's a good way to get this rolling.
Yeah.
What do we have for next meeting?
Good question. How much time, what do you need for time to make any of these plan adjustments?
Couple weeks, but the plan's not, there's not a lot to the plan.
No, and I'd really like to keep this moving, guys. It's hot. I don't want to wait another 4 weeks. I apologize. It was probably me that was the biggest holdup
It was.
on the last one. So.
You were late.
I would have been 2
I was
weeks
late,
late.
I didn't get my
grandson. So 2 weeks is fine with me. What do you guys?
I was just gonna ask one general question of either Attorney Campbell-Boss or the applicant. What do you see as a time schedule for the rest of the year? I heard, we hope to start construction this year. So what do you see as a...
It all comes down to approvals, and our timeline we'd love to see is restarting in August or September latest, but if it gets pushed into November, I think we're waiting until April.
Try to get foundation. So upon approval from us, how much time would it take for you guys to get rolling?
You know, yeah, once your approvals, once your,
A month?
About 45 minutes to drive trucks up here, right?
well, think about that, yeah.
They're already parked down there now.
Yeah, we call
Between the
appeal periods, all
approvals,
that kind of stuff.
And
As
then
soon
the
as they're all
the
done.
financing part has to be factored in. And then I would say it's more indicative, the timing will be based on once the financing is done. That's when
Things get rolling.
things get rolling.
Okay. And we've got, David mentioned to me, we've got a couple weeks for our town council just to go through things too.
Correct.
And to work on that.
But the answer to you is, as soon as, we're geared up to start as soon as we can.
Yeah.
We have the, go ahead.
So the hope is to have enough time to get things going.
That's,
Yeah, like you
that's
said.
what we're looking at. We're looking at the months going by.
And do I see, we have maybe one substantive thing is whether, based on what David finds, whether we're gonna require a roadway,
Yeah, the sub-base gravel.
sub-base roadway more than you'd like to
Subdivision
provide.
Exactly.
Other than that, I don't see any real substantive
No.
issues.
So it really becomes a question of whether you want to keep the public hearing open or close it and set up the next meeting to really have a decision type meeting. Or keep the public hearing open just in case, set another meeting date, you can always close it, and then we can get into the decision.
Yeah, I'm inclined to keep it open till the flow tests come back.
Okay,
All right, just to keep that portion open, just in
That would
case.
be-
That's a pretty big issue.
that would be July 8th.
And I'm not expecting any problems, to be honest with you. I mean, based on what we've,
No, and that makes sense,
you know.
because that
but-
would be an
I
integral
mean, that's a
part.
pretty big issue that if
We
someone's
don't
got
wanna
something to
have
say
to
about
reopen
that,
it and stuff
the
like
fire department or somebody, Peter, wants to comment, I don't want to shut it down just now. So we can understand.
So that means the meeting would be 3 weeks.
What's that?
That means the meeting would be 3 weeks. So 2 weeks, it's the Wednesday before the flow test.
Right, so do the 13th. Are we doing Wednesday? I mean, I don't care what day, but I'm just,
I know right now, I can't do the 12th of July. And that's a Tuesday, so.
Well, we can't either. It's a planning board.
Yes, that's right.
so July 13th, 6:30?
Oh, I suppose.
Well, why, I'm just gonna shoot this question out there.
Could be
I mean,
79.
we got plenty of other things to accomplish without the flow test
Right.
that we could wrap up, like get these drawings kind of buttoned up, and so that when the flow test does come back, we could turn around another quick meeting. And but we're gonna be there, boys. I mean, girls, we're gonna have things wrapped up pretty good, and we'll be able to really move quick, and it's just gonna be a matter of just finalizing the draft, the decision.
Keep the meeting.
Right, and as we discussed earlier, this decision will not be done in 2 weeks. I'll need more time to do that, but
Yeah.
it'll be being worked on,
But again, yeah.
and I'll need to have the
stay ahead of
time
it.
to put it together, so.
Yeah, I mean,
So 6th and the 20th?
Mr. Chairman, in regards to the flow test, is there not a standard that they have to meet? There must be some
Oh, there
regulation
has
that
to
you're
be.
shooting for.
There is.
yeah.
So
there's-
can't you say, okay, if it meets that, we're good, if we're not, we need to come back and talk about it?
Yeah, I mean,
Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to force you where you don't want to go, it's just.
no, I
seems
just
to-
want a chance for the board members to review that data, the fire chief to have time to review that data, and if there is, which we're not expecting any serious comment, but if there is,
No, I think it makes sense to.
We can just,
It's not gonna hurt.
I mean, that's a pretty big issue just to kind of put into an order of,
It's not.
Okay,
again,
that's fine.
But I think that might be one of the only major things, Mike, on the 20th, just to finalize, and then we can really, hopefully, maybe have the thing finalized at that point, where then it just goes back for council review. Do you think, Dave?
I think that's a good schedule. We'll do our best to maintain that.
Try to we'll try to button up some of these plan issues and some of these other things, get the roadway deal dealt with on the 6th. Wes gets the plans updated, and then, then we start to frame up the decision, the rough draft kind of thing, and then that's that night, and then we come back, we go over the flow test, and if everything's, checks out good, we just finalize that decision on the 20th, and we can put this thing to a vote.
So what were the proposed meeting nights you want us
6th and the 20th,
to? Okay.
that'll be 2 weeks to 2 weeks, and we don't, Tamika, we don't have any other ZBA things, right? We just got the other one next week, right?
So I
Cell
don't,
towers next
As
week,
of right now, we don't.
and we haven't rescheduled anything for them, so that's good.
No.
Okay.
I don't wanna,
Thank you.
break up the party. I might not be available on the 6th. But if that's the case, I'll talk to Ron and Laurel and Wes, still have the meeting, so that I can always follow up, on the 13th.
Dave, I mean, do
I-
you have any comment?
Yeah, I have some vacation time I'll be using, so I will not have a decision really in a good draft form for the 6th. I
Okay.
will have one for the 20th,
Okay,
better than draft, probably at that time submitted to town council.
all right.
So I think the 20th, I don't know if there's any other vacation times that this board has, or the,
Oh, jeez, I am on vacation the 20th. Thank God you said that.
or the other members of Harvard
I
Class
thought
of
it was the
Homes.
13th.
Good God.
So what are you guys doing on Saturday?
I'll meet you here, trust me.
I think probably, the 13th and the 27th probably make
Makes best sense for
best
everybody.
sense, because my experience is the decision, while everybody has an idea of what it's gonna consist of in their heads, it's a lot,
That differs
it's
from-
not that easy to get from here to paper, as one might think.
I appreciate that, Peter, thank you. That's a
And
good point to make.
I know from experience that when an initial draft starts going between lawyer and lawyer and lawyer, it's.
Yeah.
With one
I'm not
lawyer,
saying
I always
more.
say, with one lawyer in the room, you can accomplish anything, with two, it takes care of.
All right, so we're back to the 13th at 6:30?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have
both
the
days
best-
will
we
be,
have the best of intentions.
oh, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah, so the 6:30 on both those days, the 13th and the 27th,
And I probably won't be here the 27th.
you won't be?
No, I'm hoping by the 13th, we'll have a pretty good idea where the heck we're going.
But will we need him to vote
Yes.
on the 27th, right?
Hmm.
Is Michelle back on the 27th,
Should be,
right?
yeah.
I
She's
believe
back
she
in
will be.
July,
Yeah.
she's just gone this month, like for a few weeks to the 4th, right?
Can you remote in to vote?
Will you have the Zoom ability?
Hold on.
No, the 30th.
Hey, Chris, Could we just touch on DCR status before the meeting breaks up?
Sure.
So we got 13 and 27.
I could do whatever.
That's a
Pretty
pretty
come
good.
off the beach stuff.
What beach, what beach you gonna be at?
Let's go there. We go up in, Wells.
Okay, we'll join you up there.
All right.
We'll have a special meeting.
Awesome.
Now we're talking.
Haven't been there in a long time, so we'll have to go back.
All right, so we'll plan for those 2 days. All right, and, yeah, Mike, you wanna give us an update?
Well, no, I'd like for ACH to give us an update on where we are with DCR. I've talked to Peter about it, but I think it's important you folks know.
Okay.
So I actually had a conversation with them a couple weeks ago now, after the, not last night's CONSCOM meeting, but the one prior to. And so one of the things that the gentleman from the DCR did make comment about it was that the trail from the driveway down to the pond, that he thinks that may be a waiver, a required waiver from their regulations to allow that. So if that's the case, we're gonna remove that from our plan as part of the application to the DCR, so it doesn't cloud the DCR application. But he can't give us an official decision on that until we submit. I have my signatures now after tonight, because there was another form that we needed to put together that gave the town gave the applicant the ability to be the applicant on the application. And so I have all that, it'll go in the mail this week and get that in their hands. The maximum amount of time they have is 2 months. Generally from the DCR says typically they're about a month when they'll get a decision out to us. And so that's where we are.
And basically what we're asking them to do is determine that we don't need any type of approval or permit from DCR for the project.
And that's why we don't want to ask for a waiver for that path,
Right, we want to try to avoid it.
at least tied to this
Is
project.
the path existing right now?
No, not down to the,
Not till
from the driveway to the pond.
And what I've discussed with Mike is later on, once we get into the project and we're starting, if we are gonna connect and we do need to go before them, we'll just do a separate process before them so that we can connect it.
We can do it on behalf of the town as the applicant to the DCR, so it doesn't tie the two.
Doesn't cloud, doesn't stifle the project.
Correct.
That's what we just signed tonight, was so that they could be the applicant.
Makes good sense, and that's just good business.
Just wanted you guys to be aware of it.
Let's keep things moving.
Correct, and that's what we're
Simplify, break it down, kill one thing at a time.
But there was no drainage from up above
So we are,
originally, in the original hospital when it was there, down to the pond?
at least that's anything that's left. So that was, what, 2004 when that was taken out? That was all demolished,
And it was
2000?
before that.
Yeah.
But,
heights were-
but the heights were demolished, but was the old drainage, was that demolished?
At least on the site it was. So anything that we could technically use as, but that's the only thing that we would, I guess, want to use as
We
credits.
don't know.
But we don't need to use it, I guess.
I think that's gonna be one of the
Yeah.
things that's discovered when backhoes and shovels
Cannot
start
recall.
going in.
I thought I went down towards Walker's. Because it wouldn't come over the steep cliff, because
No, it
that's
wouldn't.
where the plant was.
True, but there is a manhole there partway down,
Yeah, I think it went down that, out,
up the other way.
out towards Walker's. That's south.
Okay.
If I may, we need
Yes.
a motion to continue the hearing.
Okay, all right, so, can I hear a motion to continue this hearing to, July 13th and July 27th?
At 6:30.
At 6:30, yeah, both nights at 6:30, can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all right, any discussion?
Just one comment about the 27th. It's my daughter's wedding, so, you know, I'll see what I can do.
What time should you get married?
I knew there was something, you know?
It's the form for that purpose.
If I can just,
We'll just do one at a time, we'll just go right to this 13th and then do another continuous form to go to the 27th.
either between Dave or Tamika, if you can just check how we're doing with the 90-day for the public hearing.
That was March 24th you filed, I believe, right around that date.
We're all set, this is a site plan. This is a site plan, so it's 45 days to have the hearing open from the date of the application, so we've met that. And a decision has to be written within 45 days of the hearing being closed.
Okay,
So
so
this
we're not,
decision will be written inside of the hearing.
all right.
So we're endless in the middle. We
The only
just got
reason I
45
asked is
start
if we have to
45
give some type of permission to keep
Sure,
going.
yeah, no, it's a good.
No, we're
point.
okay, this is not a
That
special
All
permit
right.
situation. Even in that case, it's after the closing of the hearing.
Okay.
It's when the decision time starts for a decision.
Good question, good question.
You want to sign this, you want Peter to sign this? This is the continuous form.
All right, any other comments from the board? We've got the motion to continue that. Did we vote on that?
No,
we haven't
So
voted.
we had the comment, I'm sorry. So that was it, that's the only, any other discussion?
I'm just wondering if it's zoomed and recorded,
Oh, there it
you know,
Is there another?
Doug could probably look at the meeting when he gets back.
Well, we can even look at it the 20th, I'll have a better idea what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the wedding's happening.
Now technically, if we have four, if Michelle's here, we can still vote.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's a
As long
quorum,
as she
so technically.
reviews the
Well,
recording.
three's a quorum.
Not, I thought with 5 members you had to have 4.
No, three.
But to vote,
Well, isn't
Yeah.
it?
I thought you had to have 4 to
I'll-
vote.
On the site plan review, you only need to have 3 members to vote because it's a site plan.
Yeah, I think you just
Oh,
need,
okay.
you just need an approval. You don't need a supermajority or
It's
anything like
3.
that, 'cause it's
Yeah,
not-
it's gonna be unanimous with 3. With 5, we can have 1 nay and 4.
You need 3
Yeah, 3.
3 to whatever to prevail, and that's in the site plan regulations.
Okay. Okay, all right, so, any other discussion? Jim?
No, I was just getting ready to vote.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody?
Jim's
No names,
favorite
motion
show's on at
unanimous.
9.
All right. Well, okay, thank you, everyone. I think it was a good, productive meeting tonight. Got a lot of progress. I think we can kind of start seeing the finish line here, and I think this is a good thing. Tim, thanks for coming tonight.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
Very nice, well said, simple explanations for simple guys like myself to understand, so it's greatly appreciated. Yeah.
I appreciate you guys pushing it along too.
Yeah, well,
Keeping it moving.
gotta keep moving. There's a lot here. and
Yeah, no
A
doubt.
lot of different
Well
angles
done,
to it,
Rick.
so
I just where it's closed.
just wanna make sure we,
Yeah.
there's a few little outside issues, you know, this DCR thing and that roadway thing, and all that. All right, we have a motion to close the meeting. Do I have a second? Second. Doug, all in favor? Any discussion? Closing the meeting? None? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? None? Unanimous? All right, so the meeting's been reopened.
Did we have to reopen the hearing?
Yes, I reopened the hearing at 6:45, just to be clear. Okay, the hearing was
I
reopened.
made the request.
Yep,
Somebody
In the
made the
hearing.
motion.
yep. Attorney Calabasas made the request, the chair.
Oh, Dick made the motion?
Dick made the motion.
I seconded it.
Doug seconded it.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
22.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, approved, unanimous.
I move to close the hearing.
Do I have a
Not
second?
close it, Really extend the hearing.
To extend the hearing,
No, all you have to do is make a motion to close.
close
Adjourn.
tonight,
Adjourn is a better
The
word.
hearing will
Okay.
still be open.
to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Any hearing any nays? None, unanimous.
All right.
Good night, everybody, thank you
Thank
for coming.
Thank you.